dopamine gives us information about where we are in that relativity scale between pleasure and pain.
And when you say it's quite fitting for anyone that can't see, we have a set of scales on the table. And scales are relative to each other because if you pour in one end, the other end goes up. And if you pour in the other end goes up and this end goes down. And when you say relative, that's what you're describing, right?
Yes, okay. That's what I'm describing, yes.
Okay. And what activities that I do every day have an impact on my dopamine?
Well, probably almost everything, in some ways. Every time we are doing something that's pleasurable, reinforcing, rewarding, that will affect dopamine. It's really the primary signal that lets us know that this thing is potentially important for our survival, as I mentioned. But even aversive stimuli can trigger dopamine.
What's aversive?
Something that's painful or not pleasurable, dopamine gets involved in that equation. Anything that's novel or new is something that triggers our dopamine in our reward pathway. Dopamine is fundamental for movement, so not just pleasure and reward, but also movement. So, for example, Parkinson's disease, which is a disease related to stiffness and tremor, is caused by a depletion of dopamine in a part of the brain called the substantia nigra. And as dopamine gets depleted in that part of the brain, people lose the ability to move their bodies. And it's probably no coincidence that the same neurotransmitter that is so important for pleasure, reward, motivation is also really important for movement, because most organisms have to locomote toward the object of their desire. If we want that thing, we have to exert effort, right? We have to put in the work to go get it. But in the world today, we really don't have to do that, right? We can swipe right, we can swipe left, and all of a sudden it magically appears at the touch of a finger. And that's very confusing for our brains, because that's not how we evolved. We really evolved for having to do quite a bit of upfront work for a tiny little bit of reward.
I just want to, before we move on, talk about this point you said, because I think it's quite foundational to everything we're going to talk about dopamine being relative to pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this set of scales in front of me, and here I have some chemicals that are likely to produce dopamine in my brain, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
yes.
So alcohol.
Yeah.
I have some rum, I have some whiskey, I have some vodka. And can you explain to me, using this rum, whiskey, and vodka, how dopamine is relative to pain and what's going on in my brain?
Sure.
Okay, I'll slide this over to you.
Oh, okay. So, one of the most exciting findings in neuroscience in the past 75 years is that pleasure and pain are co-located in the brain. So the same parts of the brain that process pleasure also process pain. And in a very simple reductionist kind of way, they work like opposite sides of a balance. So imagine that deep in your brain's reward pathway, which is another exciting discovery, right? That there's this dedicated reward pathway of the brain that consists, broadly speaking, of the prefrontal cortex, which is this large gray matter area right behind our foreheads that's so important for future planning, for delayed gratification, for appreciating future consequences. You might think of it as like the brakes on the car, if we're going to analogize to an engine. And then deep, in the brain, we've got what we call the limbic areas, or the emotion brain. And there you have the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area that are rich in dopamine-releasing neurons, right? And they act like the accelerator on the car. So when you've got a healthy functioning brain, you've got enough accelerator, but not too much, right? So enough dopamine being released, but not too much. And you've got a healthy prefrontal cortex putting the brakes on that dopamine release. When people become addicted, there's either a problem with the brakes, the prefrontal cortex, or the accelerator, the nucleus accumbens and ventral tegmental area, or both, right? What we're finding is that there's actually a disconnect. So there are large circuits and pathways between those deep limbic structures and the prefrontal cortex that literally get severed or disconnected when people become addicted. As we think about pleasure and pain being co-located in the same parts of the brain, working like opposite sides of the balance, In order to understand what happens in the addicted brain is to appreciate that there are fundamental rules governing this balance. And one of the most important rules is that the balance wants to remain level. It does not want to be tilted very long to the side of either pleasure or pain. And in fact, what our brain does is first tilt an equal and opposite amount to whatever the initial stimulus is. I'm going to try to illustrate that here. So let's say our initial stimulus is alcohol. Now, alcohol works through its own chemical pathway. It works on our endogenous opioid system, the opioids that we make. We have receptors for opioids in our brains. It works on our endogenous GABA system, which is our calming neurotransmitter. And at the end of the day, it releases dopamine in the reward pathway. So any potentially addictive substance will release dopamine in the reward pathway. The more that's released and the faster that's released in a given individual, the more likely that substance is to be addictive. Now, another important concept here is what we call drug of choice, which is to say what releases a lot of dopamine in your brain may not release a lot of dopamine in my brain and vice versa, right? Which is this idea that people have predilections to different kinds of drugs. And by the way, people can get addicted to behaviors too. I should emphasize that.
When you say drug of choice, you mean the brain has a particular sensitivity to that drug in terms of dopamine?
Yes.
Okay.
The more dopamine that's released, the faster that it's released, the more likely that drug is to be addictive for a given individual.
So you're holding whiskey there.
I'm holding some whiskey.
There could be a brain that is very sensitive to whiskey, and there could be a different brain that you could pour all the whiskey in you like, and the dopamine response is sort of limited.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for many of my patients who become addicted to alcohol, they will tell you that from the first moment they had alcohol, they knew they were either in trouble or had met their best friend or some combination. It was a very potent experience for them. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on the pleasure side of the balance. Dopamine's being released, but no sooner has that happened than my brain will work very hard to restore a level balance. And by the way, a level balance is what neuroscientists call homeostasis. Okay. And one of the overarching physiologic drives for all living organisms is to return to homeostasis. Homeostasis is that parameter of what's often called affordances, or states of being that are adaptive and healthy to the organism. For example, I have a certain homeostasis of body temperature, and if we go much beyond that, either too high or too low, we will disintegrate and die, right? So homeostasis is that states of being that are compatible with existence and potentially advantageous too.
Sort of baseline level.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, baseline level. And by the way, we're always releasing dopamine at a kind of tonic baseline level in our brains. I sometimes think of it as the heartbeat of the brain.
So what's happened here for people that can't see is you poured a little bit of whiskey into one end of the scale, the pleasure side of the scale, and the other side of the scale has risen because now there's whiskey in the pleasure side, which I guess has released dopamine.
Exactly. So now we've released dopamine in the reward pathway.
Okay. Because the pain side went up, does that mean there's now less pain in the brain?
Well, I think, again, this is a metaphor. Sure. It's an oversimplification. The idea here is just when we press on the pleasure side, we're releasing dopamine in the reward pathway and experiencing pleasure. Okay. But no sooner has that happened than our brain will try to compensate or adapt to increase dopamine firing by downregulating dopamine transmission, for example, by involuting postsynaptic dopamine receptors.
What does that mean?
Okay. So our brain is a bunch of wires, that conduct these electrical signals. And these long spindly cells are called neurons. And the thing about neurons is that they don't actually touch end to end. There's a little gap or space between them, and that gap is called the synapse. And that gap or synapse is bridged by what we call neurotransmitters, and dopamine is one of those neurotransmitters, okay? And when the presynaptic neuron pulses and releases dopamine, it crosses the synapse and binds to a receptor on the postsynaptic neuron, which either continues or aborts that electrical signal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the ways that our brain can decrease the effects of dopamine, decrease dopamine transmission, is by involuting or taking inside the neuron the postsynaptic receptor. That way, when dopamine is released, it has nowhere to bind.
Oh, okay. So it's like removing the docking station.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very good. It's removing the documentation. So essentially, getting back to our scale, we've ingested alcohol, we've increased dopamine firing in the reward pathway. But remember, our pleasure pain balance wants to return to a level position, level with the ground, homeostasis. So it's going to decrease dopamine transmission by, for example, involuting those postsynaptic dopamine receptors. But one thing about the brain in its process of trying to get back to homeostasis, and again, I like to think of this neuroadaptation process as these gremlins hopping on the pain side of the balance to bring it level again. You don't have gremlins here, you have these little rocks. But let's go ahead and put a rock on the pain side of the balance. These rocks are friends, right? Their job is to level the balance. Because remember, we got to go back to homeostasis. So I'm going to put a rock on, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, it right now I've got it pressed down on the pain side of the balance. But that's exactly what happens in our brains. In this process of neuroadaptation, those gremlins hopping on the pain side of the balance don't get off as soon as the balance is level. They stay on until we're tilted and equal and opposite amount.
So is that what a hangover is, or a come down? As they would say when people take drugs, they say, I have a come down.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. That's the hangover, the come down, the Blue Monday, or on a much smaller scale, just that moment of craving, right? That moment of wanting to have one more shot.
Why does it overshoot? Why can't it just perfectly hit homeostasis?
Such a great question.
Because then we'd feel fine.
Yeah, why did Mother Nature do that to us? It's so cruel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell you an evolutionary just so story. What we mean by that is we don't really know why, this mechanism exists, but from an evolutionary perspective, if you're living in a world of scarcity and ever-present danger, this is the perfect mechanism to make sure that we're never satisfied with what we have, that we're always wanting more. It's made us the ultimate seekers.
Okay, because immediately after getting something, I'm now feeling a lack of pleasure, and I'm at a deficit, on the pain side of the scale, which means that I'm going to go seeking out more dopamine.
I ain't heard that word in
And
so
in a
long.
world where
That's
everything's
crazy.
quite scarce,
Babylon.
that could mean going on another 4-hour hunt the next day to go kill a gazelle or something.
Perfect. You
Okay.
got it perfectly.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to motivate me because
Nah, bro, I was thinking about that, bro. I'm gonna just go home and roll up another blunt and some shit. Ain't worried, it, bro.
Now that's it. So why is that, right? It's because alcohol is a product of human engineering that releases so much dopamine all at once in the reward pathway that our brains are reeling to compensate, right?
I
We
definitely
really
feel that
weren't
vibe from her. She
evolved
do
for
feel a little
this much
soulless.
pleasure with this much easy access. As you said yourself, really evolved for us to have quite a lot of work up front and to be hungry and to be lonely and to be tired and then get a little bit of reward that would then bring us back up to homeostasis. So really we were evolved to be
Appreciate you,
pressing
my
on
boy.
the pain side of the balance in our effort to find pleasure. And then when we find it, that little bit of food or clothing or shelter or a mate would bring us back to the level position. Does that make sense?
yeah. So you're telling me essentially that we're all wired to be addicted, because if this is how our brain works in a world, it's designed to seek out more dopamine. But the problem we have now is we have all this synthetic dopamine, effectively, like this synthetic chemicals and some synthetic things, and an internet that is wiring us to give us so much dopamine so easily. That means that our brains are effectively like mismatched to the world that we live in, and therefore wired to be addicted. Yeah, I think you actually said that. I found a quote you said in an interview where you said, "We're all wired to be addicted, and if you're not addicted yet, it's right around the corner."
Right, coming to a website near you. Yes, I guess I would qualify that a little bit by saying we're wired for survival in a world of scarcity. That's not the world we live in now. We live in a world of overwhelming overabundance. And so there is a mismatch between this ancient wiring that has us relentlessly pursuing
Same
pleasure
shit,
in
same
order
shit.
to survive and a world that's so infused with pleasure and so many rewarding stimuli that now we're overwhelming our reward system and our brains are reeling in response to try to compensate.
So what happens to this scale then in such a world where I can get a big hit of dopamine all the time using some of these synthetic things or the internet or pornography or whatever else? What's going on with this scale over and over again?
Okay, great. So let me get there. Let me first say, though, that remember, after we do something that's highly pleasurable, our brain compensates with neuroadaptation, tilting an equal and opposite amount to the side of pain, and then restoring our balance back to the level position, right? Or what we call homeostasis.
I'm trying to learn to control my dopamine, man. For real, for real. Y'all supposed to stay and listen to.
Stasis. So this doesn't last forever, right? It's pleasure, then it's pain, then it's back to the level position. But if we continue to consume our drug of choice over days to weeks to months to years, and we add in a whole bunch of other
Facts. You
drugs,
can't
and
live
now
off
we're
grid being
consuming,
broke, bro.
pornography and smoking pot and eating donuts and you name it, all at the same time, then essentially what happens is those gremlins on the pain side of balance are camped out there.
For anyone that can't see, she put all of the rocks into the pain side to represent all of the addictive behaviors that this individual has now taken on.
Right. And now we've entered addictive brain, by which I mean that we've changed our hedonic or reset point to the side of pain. Now we need more and more of our drug in more.
Congratulations, man.
Not
26 days is a long time for me, man.
the level
For real,
of
for real.
balance and feel normal. And this is not going to be enough.
I gotta light up every day.
Much more than this container can hold. We can feel normal. And when we're not using, we're walking around with a balance tilted toward the side of pain.
Bro, you trying to lead me out the wrong path, man. What you talking about?
Any addictive substance or behavior, which are anxiety, irritability, insomnia, depression.
So if I manage to get enough
Yeah, congratulations on your daughter, man.
outweigh it would what would then happen?
More rocks. Yes,
Okay.
more
For real.
rocks.
So momentarily,
Stoning life
I
people
would
a week,
maybe be
bro.
in a little bit of
Shit,
pleasure.
Yes.
Money and
Then my
shit.
brain would remove the docking
spend way too
stations
much money
again,
on that
remove
shit,
more
bro.
of them, more rocks would go in, and I'd slam down on the pain side again, which
Yes.
means I need more alcohol
Yes.
to try and get up to pleasure. And slam. Okay, so really, you wanna dopamine fast, or you need to just balance this. And this is so difficult because of the world we live in. It's almost it's funnily enough, because this little scales experiment analogy here has given me a huge amount of empathy for people that are addicts.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you said that, because I think that is the key to empathy for the disease of addiction, as well as for people with the disease. Having empathy for themselves is recognizing that on some level it's out of their control, right? Because when we are tilted to the side of pain, the overwhelming drive to restore a level balance or restore homeostasis as quickly as possible overwhelms any other rational thought about the consequences of my drug use, right? It's just like, get back to the level position, because if I do that, I'll at least feel temporarily better.
One of the things this analogy also highlights for me is that people who are addicted aren't trying to self-harm.
Right.
And this is kind
Hey,
of
Wilma, where you from, man? You must be from Jamaica or some shit.
Whereas when I look at this analogy, I go, actually, what they're trying to do is to deal with pain. And we're all trying to find ways to deal with our pain. But in this analogy, what ultimately happens, and I guess is what's happening with addicts, is the way they're choosing to deal with their pain is becoming self-destructive, and that's creating more pain.
Right.
And it's this vicious downward cycle.
Nah, that's a good
And I
idea
think
right
that
there.
sort of reframing of what's going on there is really critical, because again, it
They got
begets
waste
more
spots
empathy.
everywhere.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I think this metaphor, it makes an assumption that we all start with a pleasure pain balance that's level with the ground, but actually that's probably not true, right? Some people at baseline may actually be more depressed or more anxious, or may have had life experiences that sets them up for a kind of chronic stress reaction. And we know that people with co-occurring psychiatric disorders, for example, are at increased risk of developing addiction, probably because they're reaching for that substance to self-medicate their psychiatric problem. The issue with that is that it's not medicinal, right? It's not healing. Although in the short term, substances can help with those kinds of feelings of psychological and physical pain. Over time, because of the way the brain adapts, as we've discussed, substances and other addictive as we drive ourselves further into the kind of the pain side of the balance.
So is this why trauma often leads to addictive behaviors? Because the trauma has caused a pain, a stress, and we're searching for ways to medicate that pain or stress.
Yeah, to numb our
coming to the end of the day, like 26 people still be here, probably like 30. It's a hit or
help
miss.
us find those things that we need to shelter, a mate. We call those natural rewards. But today, that same reward pathway that relies on dopamine has been hijacked by all of these artificial rewards that our brain confuses as necessary for survival, which is why people with severe addiction will be willing to lose, not consciously, but unconsciously, their loved ones, their homes, their jobs, everything they have in pursuit of their drug of choice. It's because their brain has been hijacked and they now confuse the drug as necessary for survival. The other thing about drugs is that they're incredibly potent. They release a lot of dopamine all at once, which again is confusing for our brain. Natural rewards require upfront effort where we do a lot of work and then we get a little bit of dopamine. And that's what our brains evolved for.
I mean, that makes sense in my own life. When I'm most stressed or most challenged by something professionally is when I immediately notice that my diet goes out the window. I start eating things that are bad. I actually stop going to the gym as much. And it can form a bit of a downward spiral, can't it? I guess, as we've kind of seen from the dopamine scale.
Can I get back to your question about trauma and stress? So,
the Diary of a Podcaster, some shit like that. I think that's his name.
there's a very interesting series of experiments in rodents, mice, and rats, where first of all, rodents very easily get addicted to cocaine. They
My
will
bad,
press
bro.
a lever
You turn it off.
cocaine until exhaustion, death. But if that cocaine is then taken away, that behavior will extinguish, which means that the mice will eventually just stop pressing the lever, right? Because they're not getting any cocaine. Totally makes sense.
No, I'm not from Jamaica.
But if
I asked you that because I heard you say Babylon. I ain't never heard. That from a person that's not from the islands.
First thing the rat will do
Babylon
is run over.
Of course, you know about that.
Which tells us that once our brain has discovered the drug that even after we stop using that drug, if we are exposed to an extreme stressor, our brain will tell
Angela,
us.
Good looking out. I'm in Diary of a CEO. I'm bugging. My bad.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, so if you discover your drug of choice when you're younger, and it's food, or it's pornography, or if it's, I don't know, anything that really makes you feel good for a moment of pleasure, that will always become, in the case of these.
No, bro, I'm trying to quit my addiction, bro.
Thing you run back to when life gets.
I can't turn the video off. I want y'all to listen with me.
And again, in people in sustained recovery from addiction, that when they are under stress, that is a trigger potentially for them to relapse. So they have to be really thoughtful in their lives for, number one, trying to avoid stressful situations. And by the way, stress can come in many different forms. There's a great acronym in Alcoholics Anonymous called HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Those
Also, watching
kinds
way
of
too much
stressors,
internet, bro.
everyday stressors, which we all experience, hungry, angry,
Somebody
lonely,
become an
tired,
NPC.
can trigger us to want to use. So people in recovery have to be really thoughtful about not getting too hungry, not getting too angry, not getting too lonely, and not getting too tired.
At the end of this conversation, I want to go through all of the sort of practical solutions that
Okay.
someone struggling with an addiction to social media, pornography, food, whatever it might be, can implement to try and shift that cycle that they might be going through, especially when they're halting, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. How often have you worked with addicts? Have you spent much
How
time
old
working
are
with
you?
addicts directly?
They
Oh
say
my gosh, yeah.
this
So that's
isn't
the
for you,
bulk of
bro.
my career is working with people with all different kinds of addictions.
Give me an example
I
of the
gotta
most
take this from a
obscure.
religion.
I had a patient who was addicted
I've
to
been doing this
water.
since like what?
I know, hard to
That
imagine.
old pal. What's up with you, my boy? This episode is called, I think it's dopamine. Yeah, that's the episode. The episode called dopamine.
She could become hyponatremic, meaning that she could lower the sodium levels in her bloodstream, which would then lead her to become delirious.
Yo, thanks, man. Go check out all my motherfucking videos. Like, all my motherfucking videos. You're welcome, Angela.
She's doing okay.
She's not. She ended up taking her own life, so that was very sad.
Gosh. In that
Alright,
situation,
this
was
bar back
there
up to-
was there a root cause of that behavior
I'ma
pattern
go home.
further upstream?
Okay.
Some kind of trauma or experience
get
that
this
had
bar
set
back up to 100.
this
I'ma
sort
go
of
home.
cascade of issues off?
Yeah, I'm just speaking broadly. For some patients with severe addiction, trauma is a huge factor, especially severe early childhood trauma.
Yeah, I've
But
seen it a couple
there are
times.
also many
I'm not
folks
gonna
we
lie.
see who have kind of great parents and have had
They mainly want to fight the dispatcher though. Like if they don't go out, they be like getting in his face, they be getting angry and shit.
because
But they don't.
we
They won't
again
fight each other. But they were like get mad at the dispatcher.
as much as possible of whatever releases in our brain to have survived evolution to this date, and yet we're living in this world with access to so many drugified substances and behaviors that we've all become vulnerable to this problem. And the reason I highlight this is because one of the things that I think has happened in the field of addiction medicine that maybe isn't the best is that
I'm ready to go back home, bro.
providers are taking really long to find the reason that someone has a substance abuse. And I think that that's important to do in some ways. In other
Nah, that's facts. But at the same time, like you got other opportunities. You know, you choose to come in, right?
be able to really do the complex emotional processing of their trauma while they're still using their drug of choice. That they really need to get out of that vortex of addiction and get into some degree of recovery before you would even want to go tackle some of those early traumatic experiences.
How many people do you think are struggling with some form of
From the
addiction?
Virgin Islands.
Well, if you think of addiction as a spectrum disorder, right, there's mild, moderate, and severe. I would even say a kind of a pre-addiction state where we're all sort of dabbling in compulsive overconsumption. I would say the vast majority of us, like 90, probably 95%,
Florida.
have some degree of compulsive overconsumption.
Orlando, Florida, man.
And, if and when it tips over to addiction, there's not a brain scan or a blood test to assess that. It's not like, switching a light switch, and it's like, oh yeah, now you have addiction. It's not like that. It's a gradual, often a gradual and insidious thing. And we don't, in fact, have a biological measurement of addiction based on what we call phenomenology, which is patterns of behavior that repeat themselves across time. And broadly speaking,
Bro, you must be a French Montana fan.
substance or a
That's the only time I
behavior,
see anybody come at mac and cheese in here. You gotta be fucking with French
that harm can very subtle or not, right? And it can be a judgment call.
Interesting. Because we do throw the word addiction around a lot in
Oh, I know
society,
what it
but really the most important part of that is to understand if it's
How's it
harming
done there,
yourself
like,
or someone else, the behavior pattern.
Yes, that's right. And to also recognize that we're not very good judges of that when we're chasing dopamine.
Okay, so we sometimes justify behaviors we have as being not harmful and it's fine and it's not impacting me at all. And what do you mean?
Exactly. And we're not very good at seeing true cause and effect, honestly, when it comes to these behaviors, which is why oftentimes people won't really see the harm until they've stopped using for a period of time.
In your book, Dopamine Nation, you talk about an addiction that you had.
Yes.
And it was really surprising to me because I would never have thought that being obsessed with erotic novels
I ain't never heard of a dunk in
could
my
be
life.
classified as an addiction.
What's a dunk?
What happened? What was the behavior? Take me into that phase.
Fuck.
So I was in my early 40s. My kids were no longer little. I got a lot of my self worth and ID from being a mom. And my kids were sort of entering adolescence. They were doing fine, but they didn't need me as much. So I had kind of a grief reaction, in response to that, was trying to figure out, how to navigate this next phase of my life. I'd always been a reader, and in particular, a reader of novels. In my own way, that was how, as a
Only
child,
been
I
there like 8
self-soothed,
years,
was to escape
9
into
years.
the fantasy life of novels.
Still kind of new to the lingo.
And then one day I heard another mother at school said that she was reading this great book. It was called Twilight. It was about these vampires, and she was going on and on about it. And I read it, and I can't tell you what it was, but it was just like the key in my particular lock. It was completely transporting.
Oh, I know
It
exactly what you're
just
talking about.
released a lot of dopamine, is all I can imagine, in my brain's reward
I ain't no
pathway.
folks call me
And so I
dunks,
read the
though.
whole series, and then I read the series again, and I read it again. And of course, by the third or fourth time, it wasn't as, reinforcing. And I thought to myself, I wonder if there are any more vampire romance.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then for me, the real tipping point was I got an e-reader, I got a Kindle. Because what happened was, even before I got the Kindle, I started reading, novels that I would say I would be slightly embarrassed to admit that I was reading. Kind of bodice rumor novels. As time
Bro,
went on,
if I download Twitch, if y'all
graphic
follow me on
kinds of
Twitch,
descriptions in
if I
order
start
to
doing Twitch,
find it pleasurable. And by the way, that's classic for the addiction narrative, right? Where you start out with a little, and it goes a long way, and then over time you build a tolerance. That's neuroadaptation, the gremlins
what is hit?
pressing
I
down
don't
on
know
the
what's
pain side
hit.
of balance. Now I need more of my drug, more potent forms to get the same effect. Gradually over
Damn.
time, I started
Just come
reading,
here, nigga.
more and more graphic, erotic, sexualized versions of this book. And I was embarrassed, so I would hide that I was reading it. And that gets into the whole double life addiction, where now we're lying about our use, we're using our drug over here, but pretending like we're not. So my kids would walk in the room, and I would be hiding behind another book, one book behind another book. So I was reading something,
Where
more
my moderators at,
sophisticated.
bro?
And then the tipping point for me came really when I got a Kindle or an e-reader. And then my reading was totally anonymous. I could read these books anywhere, anytime. No one knew what I was reading. And as soon as I finished one,
Yeah,
I
delete
could
this.
read another one.
Fuck
And
me.
I almost overnight became a chain reader. Like literally, when I wasn't doing something else that I had to do, I was reading romance novels, one after another, which meant I was, less present for my kids, less present for my husband. I would often stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the
Nah,
morning
dead
on a
ass, bro.
weeknight reading
I don't
romance
know why they
novels.
make people
Have to get
moderators.
up 2 hours.
They don't moderate. The hell?
Not able to be present for my patients, not enjoying my work,
Don't make no sense.
gradually getting more depressed, irritable, anxious, insomnia. We went on a family vacation with family friends of ours, everybody together in this beach house, all the kids playing. I was like hiding in the
You see, when you streaming, it be hard to like
exactly what
go
happens
to
with
people's profile and do all that extra shit.
focus narrows,
That's why you
and
need
the
moderators.
things that we used to enjoy are no longer pleasurable. Only this one thing holds salience for us. Putting our whole day around getting it, using it, hiding our use. And that's
No facts.
It's so
I'm mad
interesting
that
because
I
I was,
even
as you were
reacted to him. For real, for real.
that I have that maybe isolating me, or I just even things like spending a lot of time on the internet, just watching video after video after video on YouTube or those kinds of things, or just like spending tons of time in my WhatsApp group chat talking, like roasting my friends about nothing.
Right.
How
Yeah,
do you know?
I feel
Like
bad
this
now.
is it's
I'm
because
like getting out
on
of
one end of the
pocket.
spectrum, I could say,
It's
okay, well
very
that's
normal to me.
harming my relationship with people in the real world, but it's making me feel good, and it's maybe helping me in another department because I'm learning more about vampires, or like so like because there might be net harm somewhere else, but then an upside over here, and then I start rationalizing this behavior. Like, how do you just distinguish between these behaviors and know what's bad and what's good?
You know what? It's really hard. These digital devices are powerful tools, but also very potent drugs. There's no doubt that digital media lights up the same reward pathway as drugs and
Come
alcohol.
on, y'all.
These
Get this off
devices
to
and platforms
95.
were
I'm trying to go home. 95.
beyond what we planned for, want, or even what's pleasurable. It can lead to using this to a point where we don't even like it anymore and yet have difficulty getting ourselves off of it. That really speaks to the inherently reinforcing and cognitively adherent nature of this medium. It is a drug. And so, if and when and how we're crossing into addictive use, I think we need to be very vigilant about whether that's happened in our lives. And one of the ways to do that is actually to try cutting out that particular digital, that website, or that behavior for a period of time long enough to experience withdrawal, potentially reset reward pathways, and then reevaluate. Because when we're in the behavior, as you yourself noted, it's very easy to rationalize. Oh, I need to do this for work. Oh, I need to do this to stay in touch with my friends. Oh, I'm learning so much from this, right? And all of that may have been true initially, but may not be that true anymore. And what I often point to is the subtle signs of addiction, which are things like depression, anxiety, inattention, insomnia, restlessness. These can be early signals for our consumption entering into that addiction range. But us,
I ain't gonna lie, I dead ass forget my Twitch name. I gotta log back into my Twitch. It might be me though. No. 33? No.
following in the footsteps
I
of
probably
my
got the
patron
same name as my YouTube channel on Twitch. I'm not sure though. I gotta download it again.
for 30 days. Right, just to see like, okay, I think this is a problematic behavior. Can I give it up? How will I feel? And the very first 24 hours that I did not read.
You gotta be in my life for more than like a couple of weeks to just be my moderator. I don't just make
Anxiety,
anybody my moderator.
restlessness, and
Because
utter
sometimes people just
insomnia.
overdo it.
Unlearn the art of putting myself to sleep without this digital narrative. And that lasted a good 10, 14 days, completely mapping on with the amount of time it takes typically to get out of acute withdrawal. That is to say, for those neuroadaptation gremlins to hop off the meds and bounce, and for homeostasis to begin to be restored. But by the time I got weeks 3 and 4,
No, you got the wrong person.
better than I had in the first 2 weeks, but actually better than I had felt. Really, I enjoyed my kids more. I was more present for them. I enjoyed my husband more. My work seemed salient again. I had started thinking,
No, for real. You can't handle being a moderator. You don't know how to act.
it's not interesting anymore.
For real.
All of a sudden, it was interesting again. Right, so you see the relativity of that hedonic pathway and how when we're doing that behavior or substance that's so reinforcing that everything else loses its salience, we can really misidentify what is causing our irritability, anxiety, insomnia until we stop that substance for long enough to see its impact on our lives.
How is it making you feel? Because I think a lot of people can't understand how you could get addicted to a book. I'm sure some people understand that, but for me, it's not something I've ever become addicted to. So how did it feel? Was it like exciting? Is it arousing? Is it somewhere in between?
I mean, I think that romance novels are essentially socially sanctioned pornography for women.
Okay.
And the medium's narrative. And if you're a person for whom narrative is a powerful drug, as it is for me, a story, a narrative, a fiction, very potent since I was a child, then, it was a natural that would be the thing that I would get addicted to. And basically, just like we've hacked and bioengineered everything to make it more potent. I mean, there's a formula for writing romance novels. Like if you take a physical copy if you go to a store and you pick up a romance novel and you literally physically
Every time
open
I
it
think
to
I might have
2/3 of the
gone
way
home, somebody
through,
changed
you
the
will
scale.
get to the climax unended. Right? It's like it's engineered. I got to a point where I wouldn't even read after. I wouldn't finish the book. I would go on to the next book.
Just to get to the climax part and then you'd move on.
Yeah.
She talking about dopamine and an addiction.
And also, I got to a point where I didn't care about the quality of the writing or the depth of the character. It didn't matter. It was the drug. It was that moment I was looking for. And there are a lot of free books on Amazon, some of which are high quality and some of which are not. But like, any good drug dealer knows, free samples, that's the way you hook people. I would search for these free samples. And that's part of it too, like the searching for the drug. Mm-hmm. So the upfront work you do for the drug is part of the drug, right? It's all that, the machinations and the hiding and the this and the that gets to be part of like all of the rituals surrounding it.
As you were talking as well, I thought about work and work addiction.
Yes.
Because you earlier used the term excessive consumption. Right. And when I think about work, even my work, I think, Jesus, I excessively consume work. I start so many bloody businesses and invest in so many things. And if you looked at that behavior objectively, if you're like an alien looking down at me, you'd go, this guy's got a fucking problem. Do you know what I mean? You think that's funny?
No, I feel for you.
Do you know, and it's funny because society, those people are reinforced. We clap.
That's right.
We clap. Right. We go, this guy's not sleeping. Right. He's working 18 hours a day. Right. Clap, clap, clap. Right. Give him a trophy, an award. Right. Name a thing after him or her or, and it's just really interesting that addiction of work, and you tell me if it can be an addiction. It's certainly on the scale of one end being sort of consumption, excessive consumption, and being addiction. It's on there somewhere.
People can get addicted to work.
Exactly, 52 votes, and I still didn't reach my goal. Come on, man, give me 95. I'm ready to go home. I'm hungry. I want to drink some tea.
Made them more potent, more novel, more bountiful. Meaning there's more of it and more accessible. So if we break that down with work, how is work more potent? Well, certain types of work are more reinforcing, not all types of work. So, for example, white collar work is often now associated with stock like options and bonuses, right? There's often like a social media aspect to it, or maybe even a fame aspect, or as you point out, those are our cultural heroes, right? So you get all this, adulation for being a workaholic. And that also, because we're such social creatures, right? And human connection stimulates dopamine, that also makes work more of a potent drug.
Personal brand, right? So
right.
Your LinkedIn, oh my God, this person got a promotion. We'll all clap, we'll all drop the likes, the comments, you're amazing. The adulation, as you said, the awards, the trophies. And then you've got the fact of novelty. So once we've exposed our brains enough times to a certain drug, as I said, we develop tolerance, right? And then we need more potent forms or novel forms. One of the ways we overcome tolerance is by taking our drug and then changing it slightly, like adding a little new molecule.
See what happened? I can't do that because
on the internet,
I fit the description too much, bro. Like
before, but just
I'm
a
already
little bit different, and that's what the algorithm.
If I do that, it's not gonna last long. I'm telling you right now.
Right, and that engages our treasure. That novel thing that's not too novel, right? It has to be in our category. And I think for work we have that too. That there are so many ways to engage in work, and it's not all bad that it's novel, but it makes it very enticing. Then you have quantity, right? Work never ends. There's like no natural stopping point for work. You do a line of cocaine, you run out of money, you run out of cocaine, you're done, right? But that's not true for work. everywhere, anytime, and then that gets to accessibility. One of the biggest risk factors for addiction to any drug or behavior is simple access. We know that if you grow up in a neighborhood where drugs are sold on a street corner, you're more likely to try them, more likely to get addicted. If you live in a world where you have access to work 24/7, you're more likely to expose your brain to more work and more likely to get addicted to work. Again, especially if it's not.
Bro, I literally got harassed chilling in my own parking lot, bro. In my own apartment complex. Literally. I wasn't doing nothing. I wasn't smoking or nothing. And them niggas dealt with my ass, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. Them niggas sent me to the gulag, bro. Them niggas put me in a chair. For no reason, bro. No good reason, bro.
Work in which the actual task is separated from the meaning.
I mean, they quit their jobs either.
You gotta understand, I'm not the type of guy to act all crazy, bro. I'm well behaved, bro. Well behaved.
I need to quit to go find.
But there's novelty.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and that's true. Many people change jobs after 3 years. I know you see the average life of a business now is like 15 years, whereas 50 years ago.
Damn, we got Didi in the chat. What's up,
And
Didi?
there's all this turnover, all this churn, chasing novelty. I do want to emphasize that people who are in work that's not like intrinsically rewarding, but is the opposite, soul-sucking. That's also a risk factor for addiction because people just wait till the end of the day till they can go home and then use a drug to numb themselves from the stress of work.
So it's plausible that people who are in lower pleasure jobs are more likely to be overweight or addicted.
Man, what? Talking about baby oil.
Out of the workforce as many young people are doing now in the United States. And what we know
Could y'all vote, man? Y'all need to vote some more, bro. Vote, 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 vote.
People who are potentially lower class, because they're doing potentially less pleasurable work, and therefore they think about the scale. They would then end up in the pub after work.
Maybe that's partially true, but even people doing like doctors and lawyers, there are
Oh, okay.
equal rates of alcoholism among those groups. I think what's happening there, though, is that the nature of the work is just so stressful, whether it's white collar or blue collar, that there's this kind of work hard, play hard, right? Where I'm going to work all day, and at the end of the day,
Boy, I won't be working for the next couple weeks. I do that shit.
Remember, the
Gonna make sure I
biological
don't send my ass
definition of
out.
stress is any deviation. So that every time our brain has to work to restore a level balance, we're actually triggering our stress response, triggering our own adrenaline. It's stressful to have to restore the balance from those extremes of pleasure and pain.
I read in your book, you were talking about how different behaviors and sort of chemicals and substances have different impacts. And it was on page 50 of Dopamine Nation. In a study of mice, sex increases the release of dopamine by 100%, and amphetamines, which is like drugs, right? Hardcore drugs, increases it by 1,000%. By this accounting, one hit of a meth pipe is equal to 10 orgasms.
Yes.
It's interesting to think about the different behaviors we have and how they'll have a bigger impact on our dopamine. Is there like any, in a typical order of things that are like extremely dopamine inducing and things
Hi,
that
lady
aren't?
love. How you doing?
What's at like the top and bottom of the list, but in your view?
Bro, once, bro.
It depends on.
I'm ashamed to say that shit.
And we've got to look at right. I mean, potent drugs like methamphetamine, like opioids, like alcohol, like nicotine, like cannabis, are going to be very reinforcing for many people.
Bro, I tried somewhere else recently, and they tried to scam my ID, and they said my ID wasn't working, and that's my regular driver's license, bro. How the fuck you gonna tell me this is not working? The fuck?
I think every person is going to be different.
I gotta apply for more places though. It's my fault. I be on Indeed a lot, bro. I got one job call me back, bro. Out of all the jobs I applied for.
Relative values.
I've got this picture here which shows what looks like brain scans in a normal person and in someone who's addicted to different substances. I'll put this on the screen and I'll link it below in the description for anyone that needs it.
I'm sorry, y'all. I feel like I started talking fast.
Shows
I
you
gotta,
exactly
I
what
gotta calm down.
cocaine has on the brain, meth, alcohol, heroin. What is going on here?
So the red in this image represents dopamine transmission.
Okay.
So how much dopamine is being released from the presynaptic neuron, crossing that synapse, binding to receptors in the postsynaptic neuron, how much dopamine is
It
produced.
sounds good, but like what though? Like where do I even start?
And what this
Create my
image
own business.
shows
So like
is
where
that
do I start?
on the left-hand side, in healthy control subjects who do not have addiction, there's plenty of red, right? So there's plenty of dopamine transmission in the reward pathways
You know what? You're
system.
right because I could have like
But if you
started a
look at the
clothing brand and
right-hand
shit.
column, you'll see
And I
that
got
in
so
these
much
individuals
supporters.
who have
Y'all will
been
support me,
using
right?
cocaine, methamphetamine, alcohol, and heroin in addictive ways, there's almost no red, which means there's decreased or below normal levels of
Not
dopamine.
these on the corner.
They're in a chronic
Crazy.
dopamine deficit state. This is evidence of the brain trying to compensate for too much dopamine being triggered by down regulating its own dopamine production and transmission, not just to baseline, but below baseline. And importantly, these individuals who are addicted to these substances, these brain scans were done 2 weeks after they stopped using.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which tells us that this dopamine deficit state persists for some people.
Boy, you know what you're talking
It,
about, my boy.
well, it
You
depends
know
on
what
the
you're talking
person,
about.
but we know at least from this experiment that the first 2 weeks are this persistent dopamine deficit state, which is consistent with acute withdrawal, right? People feel when they first stop their drug of choice, they feel terrible, right? They
Man, you
experience
done got me
all of the
started. My belly
symptoms of
hurting now.
physical
I
withdrawal
gotta eat.
that correspond with that particular drug they were using, usually the opposite of what the drug did, plus the universal symptoms of withdrawal from any addictive substance use behavior, anxiety, irritability, insomnia, depression, and craving.
No, for real.
Now, if they can get through the first 10 to 14 days,
The thing is about me,
what
when I
we
get
see
hungry,
clinically is
it's not like I
those
could just go to a
acute
regular store,
withdrawal
bro.
symptoms
Straight island
slowly
food,
start
bro.
to reduce.
I want
And we
some
think
something
that that
nice.
is mapping on to
Jamaican jerk chicken or some shit, bro.
regenerating
Like,
dopamine
I don't know,
transmission
some
in the
curry
reward
chicken.
pathway. And if
Oxtail,
they can
like you
make it to a
said. Oh my
month,
gosh.
that's usually
Oh
the
my
point
gosh.
for on average, based on clinical experience, when people really can start to get out of that
A little bit of rice and peas, some coconut milk. Man, let me.
choice and begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel for what their lives might look like if they can maintain abstinence from these drugs.
And we can't just inject or drink dopamine. I mean, I guess like drinking alcohol, we can't just artificially mess with the balances to try and restore the dopamine levels in an addict, can we? Can't just have a little bit of dopamine.
Yeah, it's a great question because we have some natural experiments that suggest what might happen if we do that. So, as I mentioned before, people with Parkinson's have depletion
You could visit the U.S. Virgin Islands. All you need is a driver's license. But the British Virgin Islands, where I'm from, yeah, you're gonna have to get your passport to go there.
if I were to give you a spoonful of dopamine, it would do absolutely nothing because it doesn't race into the brain. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. But I could give you L-Dopa, which is a precursor chemical that would cross your blood-brain barrier and get turned into dopamine, and then
I'm
diffusely
hungry
bind
now.
dopamine receptors in your brain, in the reward pathway, but also in the movement pathways. When we give patients with Parkinson's dopamine in this form, that can temporarily improve their movements. But
I
in
need some
about
chopsticks.
1 in 4 Parkinson's patients, they
Goddamn.
will develop a de novo addictive disorder, shopping addiction, sex addiction, other types of addiction. Because we have the same problem. We are stimulating the reward pathway with dopamine that is ingested exogenously from the outside. And our brain reads that as, oh boy, gotta compensate by down regulating dopamine transmission to below baseline, which then puts us in that addiction vortex. Does that make sense?
It does. So we have to. I mean, it tells me that we have to live lives.
I don't know. I would say the best way to go to the Virgin Islands would
We
be
have to live our lives in a
to
certain sort of
from Florida to
homeostasis,
Puerto Rico.
and it's so easy not to embody it.
Uh,
And it's
yeah,
like impossible to
Florida to
live
Puerto
in
Rico, Florida to St.
perfect
Thomas.
homeostasis
That'll be the
balance
fastest
in
way.
the world we live in.
Right. Even more than having to try to live within this narrow range of homeostasis. In the world we live in today, we probably have it.
You could go to the British Virgin Islands, but I wouldn't advise anybody to come down there on a plane, bro. Like, like go to St. Thomas and then travel to the British Virgin Islands on a boat. Don't go on a plane, man. I'm telling you right now, you're not gonna feel safe.
By those neuroadaptation grounds stop people on the pain side of the balance so they can again like it on the balance. Don't get off, right? That's the
Yeah, it's about 7 islands.
an
Seven
equal loss, but
islands.
not to the side of pain. That's the come down, the hangover, etc. But it turns
I
out the
can't name
opposite
them
is
all,
also
but
true.
I can
If we
name majority of
intentionally
them.
press on the pain side of the balance, for example, with exercise or an ice cold water bath or intermittent fasting, those hormones will hop on the pleasure side of the balance and we will get our dopamine indirectly by paying for it.
No, I'm saying fly into St. Thomas and then go on a fast ferry, like a ferry boat. Then travel to the British Virgin Islands on a ferry boat, not a cruise ship. I'm talking about a
And then
ferry
when the
boat.
exercise stops, dopamine levels will remain elevated for hours on end before returning to the baseline position without ever going into that dopamine deficit state. So it's a great way to get our dopamine in directly because it's much less vulnerable to that compulsive craving for non-dopamine.
So you're not going to get an exercise come down.
You can, but because and people can get addicted to exercise, right? But typically it's very unusual because the upfront cost
One thing I miss is the
to
water, boy.
do the work
Mm-mm.
and endure the pain of exercise in the first.
And the sea grapes, bro. I be seeing like sea grapes tree in like Florida and shit, but they never bear fruit, bro. Sea grapes, bro. You gotta taste some sea grapes.
Yes.
Bitches
Clicking
are
on the
different. They
porn
purple.
website, it's
Yes, exactly.
difficult.
Yes.
Okay. So fighting for the dopamine is insulates us against the chance of an addiction, having to really fight hard for it. Okay. And this kind of explains, I guess, in part why I pulled out some stats ahead of our conversation today that from 1996 to
Man, y'all
2008,
not voting, man.
participation in ultra marathons has increased by
I only got 74 votes, bro.
1,676%. The
Come on.
ice bath
Vote,
market is
vote,
expected
vote.
to rise from 350 million in 2024 to nearly half a
I'm about to
billion by
game.
2030. The number of people taking part in obstacle course races like Tough Mudder or High Rocks, etc., has increased by almost 7x from 2010 to 2017. It seems like in society there's this counter movement towards people seeking out hard dopamine, chasing pain. Yeah, those are amazing. I didn't know that. Those are amazing numbers. In general, there's a part of me that wants to say, well, that's a good thing. But there's another part of me that's wary also because we're so good at drugifying everything that we do that there's a way in which these types of behaviors can also be drugified, right? Made more potent with all of the technology, the way that we count ourselves, the leaderboards, the social comparisons, all of that takes this thing which is
I eat
really in
ramen
its
every
natural
once in a blue
state
moon,
kind
man.
of impervious to addiction. Like you
I
just
heard them shit
typically wouldn't
stifle
get
the kids,
addicted
bro.
to these types of painful
I ain't got
physical
no kid, bro,
activities.
so
You would do what you needed to do first
I
for
can't be
you.
taking those type of
We've
risks to eat
managed to
no
make them
ramen
addictive
noodles,
in all
nigga.
these different ways. I still think it's a better way to get your
Oh,
dopamine. Like I really encourage exercise because dopamine and movement is medicine. And in general, our life is so convenient, so easy, so passive, so sedentary that I'm telling patients all the
no,
time,
that shit
you don't
unhealthy,
need to
gang.
go move your body, walk around the block. I think that's the bigger obstacle right now is just getting people to move. But I do think we need to be wary of not going too far in the direction of like the
What you know about
ultra
quinoa, bro?
performance.
You don't know about that
So, what is a
quinoa.
better way to live? If we're trying
You
to
don't know about
optimize for
that kush
happiness and
kush,
to keep
nigga.
our dopamine in balance, not have the crashes, etc., and come down to hangover, what is a optimal way to live our lives? Do we have to look back at our caveman ancestors and live like them?
I think that part of the problem is that we've organized our lives now around almost everything that we do is predicated on good
Yo,
moment will
Wilma,
happen.
you funny as shit, bro.
And because of that, we are missing out on the process. We're projecting our psyche forward into the future toward the reward and not able to really hold into it. Okay, this is going to be so weird. For example, driving over here today, I found I was
I don't know
nervous.
what's T1. What is T1?
And in a way looking forward to it, but in a way wanting it to be over, right? And seeing that in myself, I thought that's so sad. Like that's so sad that we live our lives that way. Myself included, always this weird blend of wanting whatever we're doing to be over, so that in a way we can just go hide and do
That's what's
whatever
up.
next stiff thing
Shout out to you,
we
black man
do
from
where we're
America.
safe and stimulating ourselves and so on. But I thought, what if I knew that I was going to die right after? This is making me come off really weird now. But what if I knew that I was actually going to die right after our conversation today? That totally changes my perspective, doesn't it? Because this time you and I have, that's all I got. It's over for me with this. So this conversation is it. I really better be right.
Oh wow. So you talking about me?
Really taking joy
I'm the
in
black man.
whatever you and I can find together. And I think the more we can do that,
What's happening there? You're removing the thought of the outcome, the reward, the potential, failure or whatever, and you're focusing on just being present. And in doing so, what is happening?
it's a great question.
If I had to be another race, I don't know. Probably Jamaican, so I can learn to say "Bumbo clot" better. And be a mother, suck your mother. If I was another race, I want to be Jamaican, nigga.
Me, and I don't like being in the world. I don't want to be here now. I want to be somewhere else. So I didn't really understand what they were getting at. It really took me, till I had lived quite a lot of life and had some, some significant experiences and given it some thought.
I'll be like blood
It
clot.
means be here now and be uncomfortable and be okay. And being okay with not being able to control my pleasure or my pain. Just open to whatever comes. And I think that's a key shift that I'm not trying to control. And that it's okay.
I hope y'all can stay here. I hope y'all listening.
Restless or uncomfortable, and not trying to run away from that, but just really turn and face it and embrace the discomfort, which I also think is quite universal. And then the key piece about not anticipating the reward is helps me be in the moment, right? Because I'm not just waiting for the good thing to come after. I'm saying to myself, imagine there's nothing good coming after, nothing at all, right? There aren't fireworks, this is it. And then also being able to say, it's okay in the moment, like, it's not great. Like, I embrace that. I can be unhappy, or restless, or anxious, or whatever it is. And then when I do that, I feel like there's a funny thing that happens, and all of a sudden, I'm not as anxious, right? And I am present.
Bro, I only ever seen one really good fight
Interesting. So
in
when
here, bro.
you
That shit
allow
was
yourself to
crazy.
deal with being uncomfortable in the moment,
Bro was bleeding, bro. I think he got wonked up.
it removes the thing
We
that
ain't
was
sit
making
back
you
now,
uncomfortable in the
waiting for a
moment.
ticket.
Worry or overthinking, whatever else.
Yeah, I think we have this, and it's fed by modern culture, this kind of expectancy that really we should be happy all the time. And that if we've arranged things appropriately for our lives and we've done our work and, aimed true, then we should just be like, life is great. And I don't believe that.
Bro went and sit back down, bro. Bleeding, bro. Talking about he tried to go to work, man. If you don't get your ass out of here. Crazy.
It's uncomfortable. And that it's a kind of constant state of restlessness, really honest and to the end. When I really let myself see that, all of a sudden,
Bro, I gotta pee.
I'm freed from something.
What's caused your anxiety throughout your life? You referenced earlier that some things have happened that have led you to understand this better, understand yourself better. What am I missing from this jigsaw puzzle?
Yeah, Well, you're good. You could have been a psychiatrist.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's always time. This doesn't work out.
There's still time, right?
Yeah.
It's not too late. You get a new profession. Yay. I think, for me, the big turning point was that we lost a child. And in the immediate aftermath of our child's death, I was just determined to sort of undo the experience and, you know, get enough psychotherapy and enough whatever it took to sort of not feel that pain. And it wasn't until I really just said, oh, I'm going to feel this pain for the rest of my life. It's never going away. That suddenly I felt some relief from that pain. And that was a real window for me.
So interesting that it's acceptance.
Yeah. And I think, one of the reasons I love treating patients with addiction is because I really relate to that hitting bottom moment, that moment when it's like you just have the feeling that everything I try to do.
Man, I gotta fucking piss, bro.
I felt like I had a very similar experience.
I gotta fucking piss. I'm
And
sorry.
then it was only when I kind of realized, oh, I can't run from this. I can't outrun this pain.
Bro, can y'all please vote? Bro, I'm trying to get to 95, bro, so I could go the fuck home. Please, everybody that watching this right now, vote. Please.
Run this. It's our natural sort of disposition to try and outrun pain, isn't it?
That's the irony, right? We're really wired to outrun the pain. We are. We reflexively seek out pleasure and avoid pain, and yet that's the very thing that doesn't get us to where we want to go.
But we do now live in a world where it's very easy to outrun the pain.
Yes.
This is not a lion that's chasing me. This could be a bad email, and then I open up a tab and start doom scrolling, or open up a tab and start playing video games or pornography or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are so many ways that we can now distract ourselves from, our own suffering or our own awareness.
And where do you find yourself now with dealing with that grief and the pain as we sit here?
Yeah, I feel like in many ways it's been a real gift in my life. It's really informed my life in ways that, I've learned things from that experience that I think it would have been almost impossible for me to learn otherwise.
You deal with a lot of people that are in a state of suffering. I imagine that's a weight. Because even hearing the story of the lady that passed away.
Bro, I don't want to go home and feel guilty, bro. But if 95% of my viewers say they're going home,
profession puts you right at the heart of this type of suffering.
I don't want to go home and then barely anybody even vote for me to go home.
To hold that
Be
weight.
like, damn,
A couple things. First of all, a lot of people get better, and when people with addiction get better, it's so much better that it's incredibly rewarding to see. And they're amazing people. Absolutely, some of the most tenacious, talented people you'll ever meet. And when they get better,
95%,
it impacts so many other people.
The number of votes doesn't matter to me, bro. My thing is, I want majority people to be like, yes, go home. If it's 95, it's way over majority, bro.
It's a terrible feeling, and there is a sense of responsibility, even when I feel like there's nothing I carry this responsibility.
Is there any particular cases that have stayed with you the most?
Every patient I've had has died in my care. It's really incredibly painful. And I will never, those are sort of, those people will be with me as a part of me for all of my life.
Young and old?
Yeah, young and old. It's especially tragic to lose young people. And it always feels like they're second guessing. Like, oh, only I had done that, or only we had intervened here. But I just think that's the nature of death. We can't get away from feelings of guilt and who we are, and no matter the circumstances.
How young can addiction and the consequences of addiction ruin someone's life? How young can someone be when their life is ruined from the work you've done and the patients you've worked with? And what are those addictions typically that seem to be most susceptible to those that are young?
Well, I mean, some kids start with drugs and alcohol,
Man,
in 5, 6, 7, 8.
Really? 5, 6, 7?
Oh yeah, I mean it's some kids use with
man,
their
watch out.
parents or their
Man,
caregivers.
watch
They're
out.
exposed very early. If we seriously conceptualize digital media as a drug, I mean then we've got
6, 7.
we do know that kids can get addicted to digital media and as a result die from that. I mean, there was just this tragic case of a young man who essentially got addicted to a chat box. I think he was 14, not my patient. It was written up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And he fell in love with this chat box, started to isolate, wasn't spending time with his family or friends,
What's up,
and then
dope?
eventually took
Please
his
vote.
own life, purportedly so he could join this imaginary person.
What's the youngest patient you've ever seen?
The youngest
No, I ain't gonna lie. As a certified Skriller listener, I can tell you Skriller was the first person to say that shit. Skriller said that shit a lot. It's gang or some shit.
gosh.
And he
Cannabis
just
is
shouting out
very
the gang, but
addictive.
he not a part of the gang.
Oh yeah.
Some shit like that.
Harmful?
He talking about, yeah,
Very
that's where all my
harmful.
young hitters
The
from.
target organ that it damages the most is the brain. It's harmful in many ways. I mean, number one, it demotivates people often, and so they can have the feeling that they're getting stuff done or that they're creative when in fact they're
Yo,
not
please vote
doing
for your boy,
anything.
man. Please vote for your boy like I'm the
It
president.
Most people smoke it, and so it can be damaging to the lungs and other organs. A lot of people say that cannabis is addictive because I don't have this standard withdrawal phenomenon when I stop the shakes or anything like that. Keep in mind, universal symptoms of addiction are psychological symptoms: anxiety, irritability, depression, insomnia, craving. People have that.
Bro, if enough people vote for me to go home, after I go roll my joint, I'm gonna go download Twitch. I'm gonna start streaming on Twitch, bro.
This can help with
Just
nausea
vote. I
and
want to get it to
vomiting. It can help
95%.
decrease the feeling of wanting to vomit. But again, as the brain continues to be exposed to it, there's this process of neuroadaptation. It stops working, and it can even turn on them and do the opposite. So eventually,
Nah,
people
for real,
can
they not
actually
putting
have a
nobody to work, bro.
cyclical
In here full as
vomiting
hell right now.
syndrome as a result of cannabis. So they'll show up in the emergency room and say, I can't stop vomiting. And the reason is because of the
Damn, it's taking
cannabis that
about
they
20 people
maybe
in here,
initially
bro.
started to stop
It's 7
feelings of
o'clock,
nausea.
bro. That's a fucking lot.
On page
That's a
40
lot.
of Dopamine Nation, you say we've lost the ability to tolerate even minor forms of discomfort. And as I was reading through this section of your book, I was
Yeah,
thinking,
these temp service
sounds like
though,
we've gone a little
you
bit
could go
soft.
to you could pull up on a job site at like 9 o'clock.
We've reset
They
our
might give you a
pleasure
full
or
8
pain
hours.
threshold to the
But
side of
like,
pain,
if
and
you go
even
out
the
right now,
slightest thing feels
I'm
like
already
harm to
missing
us.
one of my
Even things that,
hours.
objectively speaking, a
For real,
generation
for
or
real.
two ago would not have been considered traumatic are now trauma. We live in a bit of a trauma society. One that doesn't appear to be very resilient. And the only measure of that I have is if I think about the work that my grandfather had to do versus the work that, people maybe in my generation do and complain about and seem to be like objectively suffering over and stressed about. It seems like there's been a shift in our threshold, our tolerance levels.
I've been here since like 4:50 on the way to 5 o'clock.
I would say succinctly, yes, I do believe we have gone a bit soft, but I don't think it's a moral problem or a character problem. I actually think it's a
No, it's not first come, first serve. Not first come, first serve. It's favoritism. It's like you gotta make your name for yourself here. If you don't got a name for yourself here, you ass out, bro.
have now accumulated on the pain side. We've tipped ourselves to the side of pain
Because we've had so much pleasure.
because we've had so much pleasure. That's what we need to clarify. So that now we need more and more pleasure to feel any pleasure at all. And the slightest little pain, and we're experiencing excruciating pain. You add to that the fact that we have a culture that tells us we should never be in pain, and that if we are, something's wrong with our life, or something's wrong with our wife, or something's wrong with our job. And so now you've got, a whole generation of folks who feels like they're experiencing more pain because they're literally do not have the mental calluses to tolerate pain. And now they're being told, and if you have any pain at all, you must have something wrong with your brain. Go see a doctor. Go take a pill. And I think this is really, this is not a direction we want to keep going in.
We have a mental health culture. Assume most things are a mental health illness. In page 186 of your book, you say
Yeah, man. You know, I always got that one person who just built different.
mental health. Now, if you live in a society where everything has a label and it's a disease or an illness, or I don't feel good today, so I've got this disorder, and therefore I need this medication. I guess there's two questions: is my assessment of this situation correct? And
Damn, I opened my mouth
B, is
2
this a
hours now. No did
bad place to be in a society where we think everything, every feeling we have, we think everything that makes us different is a deficiency?
Let me start. Let me answer this by talking a little bit about the role of language and narrative, because I think this is very fascinating. And as a psychiatrist and a therapist, that is my bread and butter, right? Is narrative, how people tell their stories. By giving language to our experience, we gain awareness of our conceptual models of the world.
Okay.
Okay. And what I have learned over time is that the way people tell their stories is a window into their model of the world, and that there are healthy narratives
No, for
and
real,
not so
bro.
healthy narratives.
Sometimes I've been feeling like it's
And in
better off I
general, in
just
my clinical
don't come to work.
experience, when
I just
people
make
come
streaming
into
my
the
full time
room
job.
and they
This shit
tell
ass.
their life
For real,
story in such a way that they're always the victim of other people and circumstance in the world, those are people who are, number one, not doing well, and number two, not going to do well going forward unless they change that narrative to acknowledge what they've contributed to the problem. And the reason for that is because the way that we narrate our lives is not just
100
a
votes
way
is
to
crazy.
understand our
Y'all
past,
run this
it
shit out, bro.
actually is our roadmap for the future. So if I see myself as a victim, and that's my narrative, I will literally create victimhood for myself going forward. I will literally change my sensed experience so that whatever happens, I'll make sure I end up as a victim. When people with severe addiction get into recovery, one of the most palpable changes that I see is the way that they narrate their lives. They go from in addiction talking about their lives as if it's
100
always everybody
motherfucking
else's
votes.
fault,
That's crazy.
to in recovery talking about their lives
And I still can't go
as,
home.
oh, you know what? I could have done better here. Or, you know what? That's something that I keep doing that really messes with my life that I want to change, and I'm going to figure out how to change that.
Why is it so hard to take responsibility in such a way?
Great question. We just hate to do it. Because when we do it, we feel shame, and shame is an incredibly painful emotion. It's like a gut punch of an emotion that is associated with fear of abandonment, fear of being shunned by our tribe.
Mosin, you at work, try to go home too, man?
It's interesting because
I know, gang. I know.
there'll be the high responsibility group that just love and revel in taking responsibility because they think taking responsibility
Indeed ain't working,
means
bro.
that they are strong. It means that I'm so strong, I can take the blame and withstand it. And it's funny because the more I've learned to take responsibility for things in certain areas of my life, the more I've become proud of myself and the more I think I'm strong. And I'm like, oh, look at me, I can take responsibility for anything. And then if you go down this spectrum, you'll eventually get to the end of the spectrum where you've got people who, even as they heard you say that, will feel cognitive dissonance. They'll feel a sense, like a little, it'll irritate them. It'll piss them off, and they will be the whataboutery gang. They'll be saying, "Yes, but what about Dave? He did this to me," and they'll like the immediate reaction would be they're pissed off. They've probably gone now. They've gone, so we're not even talking to them anymore. But if you like, but it's fine. We can talk about them. They're no longer here.
Right, there you go.
But that group of people. My question really is: how do you speak to that group of people and convince them that actually taking personal responsibility is a good thing for them? And if they're focused on
Bro, you think that shit's funny, bro? Anytime a person of that complexion come in here,
like
when
how do
they
you turn
first
those
come,
people around?
Great
I'm
question.
telling
And
you,
I have
they
to
had
say,
at least
what
one
I
person
know
have to
about
tell them
black
that shit.
children,
At least
about
one
people
person,
like
bro.
Alcoholics Anonymous and what they do, because they do something that's really incredible. First of all, it's necessary to validate somebody's victimhood. So this is to say you have been wrong. If they really have been wronged, to validate that.
praying because I'm ready to go home, but I don't got enough votes. I'm trying to get to 95% yes. 95% yes.
About
So I'm
looking at each
praying,
of
bro.
those situations and after
I'm
writing
sad.
down like this person wronged me and exactly what they did. So, taking time to focus on the resentment, right? Then only after that to say, okay, but is there anything that I did that contributed to that problem? Is there anything at all that I could have done differently? And for a little kid, born into a horrific situation, there's not much, right? That a kid could have. We don't expect a child to take responsibility, but
I'm
the
crying
adult
for
who
it, man.
was
I'm
that
crying.
child, who continues to perpetuate some of the harms they experience on other people, now we're talking. Now you can begin to take responsibility for your actions in the world. So I think starting with validating, the trauma or the victim or the way in which we were wrong, processing it, giving it time, but not stopping there, which is by the way often, in therapy, certain types of therapy, that's often where we stop. We don't then take it that very important next step and say, but let's go and look at that again. And like, is there anything at all that you're contributing to this problem? Maybe it's just that you continue to ruminate about it, right? That like you're ruminating on your resentments is in a way your happy place. And maybe that's what you need to stop doing.
So that form of sort of psychotherapy that stops there can help keep
DJ, what
us
you talking about,
sick
man?
and make us sick. It's interesting because someone that's in that therapy room who has ruminated themselves all the way down to having a low self-esteem, being depressed or whatever, it appears to me that people who are at that sort of ground floor state find it hardest to take responsibility for some reason. Just that's an observation in my life that the people that I have met that are the worst still, that struggle the most with taking responsibility, are those that have a very low self-esteem. So it's almost this double-edged like catch-22. And then I've also pondered whether
Y'all just don't want me to go home and smoke my marijuana. That's the problem. Y'all vote, man. Vote. Get that shit to 95.
to take responsibility. So I guess the question is there a relationship between my current self-esteem and my ability or inability to take responsibility for a situation?
Yeah, great question. It brings to mind a patient of mine who said to me that
Y'all let me down.
that he had very very low self esteem, and he said essentially, Dr. Lemke, I'm the piece of crap around which the universe revolves, meaning that he had his own brand of narcissism in which he wasn't the most successful person. He was the most successful at being the least successful
Good morning,
person.
Will Fernando. How you doing,
And
man?
that became his
Oh,
identity,
Wilfredo. My bad.
how he saw himself and also how he saw the world.
God
And
bless
it
you too,
became
man.
very
God bless you.
entrenched. And it was a kind of a narcissism because he created then situations in order to perpetuate, like, I'm the worst of the worst. So I think the ways in which we get these sort of entrenched ideas about ourselves and the world can really hold us back from seeing clearly who we are, who other people are, and what the possibilities are.
Does our personal narrative need to be positive?
I mean, what do you mean by positive?
Vote
Rah,
yes.
rah, I'm
Fernando.
great.
Vote yes.
Almost like
Don't answer.
have a positive ending, because I was thinking about the
Fredo, vote
personal
yes.
narrative I've created in my life, and my personal narrative is like kid born in Africa, came to the UK, little bit of racial abuse here and there, felt different, shame, insecurity, parents weren't around, this made me independent, the shame made me motivated, and then I did this, and it went well. That's like my personal narrative. But if my personal narrative was moved to Plymouth from Botswana in Africa, a little bit of shame, a little bit of pain, parents weren't around, my parents didn't love me, people don't love me.
Right.
If my personal narrative ended there, you know, would it be detrimental to me ever becoming successful, happy, healthy?
Man, what you talking about?
I'm just wondering if, because we all have a personal narrative, we have like a story. If we're up on stage and someone passes a mic to us and says, tell us your story, we'll narrate this version of events, skewed towards victimhood, to heroism,
right.
to,
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, how we narrate our lives is important, right? It's not trivial, and there are healthier narratives and there are not healthier narratives. I would argue that
Yeah, I'm trying to do better,
the
okay?
victim
Yes, I'm
narrative
trying to change my life.
that
What are you
perpetuates.
doing?
You could make the same argument that the
What
hero's
are you
journey
doing, nigga?
narrative perpetuates herohood. Having said that, if we get too stuck in any fixed identity or any narrative, I think that can become its own trap, right? And then we wall ourselves off, feeling like we have to show up in a certain way
I
or
don't know,
be a
man.
certain
Somebody
person.
done pissing that
And
man
I wonder
coffee.
if you have that experience. Like, I know you have the hero's journey, and now you got to be the hero,
Yeah, I think it causes a lot of dissonance internally. What I mean, like, so when I say dissonance, I mean discomfort internally because people meet a version of you that doesn't reflect the version of you that you know. So, like, the experience you have when you go, like, I go to the gym or something.
Yes.
And I say this to my team all the time. Anyone that knows me personally has heard me say this 50 times. I will say the phrase, I just don't understand what these people are talking about. Like, I just don't get it. And I said to my team the other day in the office, I went, it's almost like I think they're lying to me. And I said I was in this meeting.
When you say you don't understand, you mean when they praise you?
Yeah.
Or okay, yeah,
because
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
unbelievable
yeah,
what they're saying to me
yeah.
that it feels like you're. I've not even watched the Truman Show. I just know what it means, but it feels like these people are just all lying to you.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I think I was talking to Jack and the team the other day about going to Thailand and being so far away from home, and people coming up to you, like thousands of people. We're doing this meet and greet thing, and saying these things to you. And I said to the team, I was like, I think it's like it's part of my brain that's like these people are lying to me. And also, yeah, you can see how it can be a slippery slope to slide in to that narrative of you.
Right.
And you've got to do quite a lot to just like stay at home. What I mean by stay at home, I don't mean like physically.
Oh, thanks, Maya, Maureen. I appreciate you.
And this goes for people that obviously, have a public platform or don't. It's very easy for one person on the internet to say something to you, and then you just start to accept that as your narrative. You see your parents tell you that you should be a doctor, and then you go to university and you study to be a doctor, and you become a doctor, and then you start thinking you're a doctor, and how that can sway you away from the full array of things that make you who you are. The music, the whatever hobbies you had.
Yeah.
Narratives are comfortable sometimes. They make us feel heard and understood. They make us fit.
Yeah.
But they
Hey,
also
bro,
are
you need to stop trying to persuade the other viewers, bro. Stop
take
doing
us
that
away
shit.
from like who we actually are.
Yes. Yeah. So when I think about your experience of feeling like people must be lying to you, I mean, sometimes we call this something like the imposter
Why you doing this?
syndrome, where you feel like you
Interesting.
have
No, I've never
you know,
thought of it like that.
a
But that's exactly what
projected,
it is. Yeah.
projected personal persona that is true in a way, but or maybe is so that you'll feel some dissonance
You on
with
Demon
that kind
Town,
of
bro.
heroic figure. And I think the way to think about that,
You on
and
Demon Town,
also,
bro. Stop.
you know, not become like cynically suspicious of people who praise you when they meet you, is just to recognize that you have become a kind of cipher or a vehicle for their projections. So they've listened to you, they've had a very positive experience, or maybe they've learned something, and it meant a lot in their lives, and you were the vehicle for that. And so you're a symbol for them, and they're projecting positive feelings onto you, because you're now integrated in their mental tapestry as kind of a totemic figure or a token, something important and
So
symbolic.
interesting because part of what you just, as you were talking, I was thinking, do you know what's interesting? I'm not even the smart one in this. I'm interviewing these smart people.
No,
And
no,
the smart people are changing their lives. And then someone comes up to me in Thailand and says,
well, there you're
Yeah,
wrong
get
about
on his
that.
ass, Maya.
So
Get
you're
on his
obviously
ass.
really smart, and you
The
also
fuck?
have
Get
a
on
really
his
high
ass.
emotion quotient, right? Which is its own kind of underappreciated smarts, where you read people really
But what he
well,
talking
and you
about?
have intuitive reasoning. And I mean, I don't know you, but you also seem very humble and real, and so all of these things that people have a craving for, authenticity, someone they can relate to, someone familiar. I mean, keep in mind too that more and more people live alone and have maybe fewer close contacts. So a person like you with a regular show that they tune into regularly, you're in their living room. Yeah, you're not just some distant celebrity. Like you are, your voice is there, your face is there. They feel they know you because they've seen you in all these different
See,
situations.
do y'all feel like y'all know me? Do y'all feel like I'm there with y'all? See, I'm creating that authentic experience.
World, you know, you.
Do I have a girlfriend? No. I wish. I need a girlfriend right now, bro. But I'll be the best boyfriend ever for real. Like, I'll be so loyal. I'll never cheat. I
If that
swear to
makes any
God.
sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I feel the same almost as you said everything there. I was like, that's very kind of you to say, but it's just very. I think part of the dissonance comes from the fact that I sit here agreeing with you, and there's only a person in this whole room in this big studio here in Los Angeles that's drawn me to
I'm
you.
glad you know this. I
And
am
so
about
there's
to be the
part of
next
your
big
brain
thing, bro.
that is
Y'all,
wondering
please like all my
maybe
videos, bro. Like,
what happened in this room,
I take a lot of time posting, bro.
what is it?
Please.
And then you got to you go,
Yes.
wait. Can you come to my family? And then you approach in the gym and goes, that conversation that we had about addiction. And then that's the dissonance that you went there. Whereas Tanya and the priest, I agree, might be able to feel
Who said never? I don't remember saying never.
And again,
Or
the
maybe I did.
guests are
You see,
totally
I need to smoke.
secondary
I'm
because
tripping.
they're watching
Did I say never?
because they're identifying with you. And
Oh, fucking phone dying. I'm bugging. I see the shit dying too, bro. No, you asking the right question, Maya. I've been wondering this. I've been wondering that, bro. Are you a boy or a girl for real? I didn't want to be offensive. But anyways, continue to the podcast.
and it's like you went there.
right.
But it's, I know the priest I agree might not be able to fully comprehend the idea of cameras and numbers and people are listening at the moment.
Right. Oh no, they feel that they're there, and and again, the guests are totally secondary because they're watching because they're identifying with you, and the questions that you ask, as you yourself said, are questions that you anticipate they would want to ask. Right? You said that, so you are also
But
channeling
I
that.
guess I'm a kid too because I
When it comes to
genuinely
food,
didn't
I
know.
trust my gut and I trust
I've been
Zoe.
here
The
one.
business I'm an investor in. Today's sponsor of this podcast. All the nutritionists I've spoken to have highlighted just how misleading information is out there when it comes to food. Take healthy foods. The claims you see on packaging that say things like low sugar, nothing artificial, are often a sign of foods to avoid. Have you ever noticed a health claim on fresh fruit? You get my point. Understandably, there's loads of distrust out there. Who should you turn to?
Bro, if y'all listening to this podcast that I'm
Zoe,
playing,
which is backed by one of the
the
world's
fuck?
largest databases and most scientifically advanced gut health tests. Zoe gives you real insights. Whenever you need it. Zoe member, you'll get a home test kit and personalized nutrition program to help you make smarter food choices that support your gut. Decide it.
Wilma, I see what you did there. You
For
thinking.
10% off your membership at
I
zoe.com,
should have peeped
code
that.
Stephen10. Trust your gut, trust Zoe. On this point of how we help someone in our lives who's suffering with some of the things we've talked about today, what is a bad way to try and help someone? Because we're in our love for them, sometimes we do things which
Damn, what the fuck? Wilma, you a fucking beast. How the hell you guess that?
Well, there's this whole
Y'all niggas some special investigators in this bitch.
addiction field called codependency. And codependency refers to the ways in which a long-term problematic person can actually enable an addiction person without realizing it and without intending to. And the way that essentially happens is that we can, well, number one, addiction is very often a family systems
You see, when
problem.
you
So the
live,
person
you
who
can't
gets
click on
addicted,
a
their
person
addiction
profile
affects everybody in
and
the
see them
family.
properly. I
And in
tried
order to
clicking on the
cope and
picture, but I could barely see anything. I was like, oh well, fuck it. I'm not about to end my
but
life
they
just to see who the person
often
is.
have
Never that
difficulty
serious.
seeing how to get out of those situations where something is harming their addicted level. Because, in a sense, it
Wilma, I
is
want to guess your age.
all
Are you like between 40 and 45?
person to regulate the way that they feel. So, for example, I treat a lot of families where, like, the adult child is deep in their addiction. The parents know that the money they're giving the child is mostly going to drugs and yet cannot bring themselves to stop giving the money. And often they're manipulated by the child saying, well, the adult child saying something like, well, if you don't give me money for drugs, I'm going to go get it off the streets and it's going to be laced with fentanyl and then I'm going to die and it's going to be on your hands. So this kind of like emotional hostage taking. But even when it's not that blatant,
Damn, you see? That's crazy. See, I'm good at this shit too. I just couldn't guess her because she literally just came in the chat. But she just came in the chat and you could figure that shit out off the TD dribble. It's crazy.
is a predictable scenario for the codependent person. So even though they may say on the face of it, they want this person to stop their addiction, on another level, they really don't. They get to be the
No, that's true. Family on time is the only thing you got in this world. I agree with you, gang.
predict what that person is doing based on
I've had experiences in my life, and this is why I really wanted to ask this question, where thought I was helping someone, and then the minute I withdrew the help,
That's what I'm trying to quit, dude. That's exactly what I'm trying to quit.
and the minute I stopped helping,
Yeah.
they got better. I was like,
Bro, I could have had a good like expensive ass car by now, bro. But no, I'm over here like smoking my money up.
about this,
It's
where
crazy.
I was propping him up.
Yeah.
I was letting him stay at my house. I was providing for him.
Yes, gang, I'm trying to.
Conversation with him when he was, I think I was 25 years old and he was 30. And I said, you gotta go. You gotta get out of my house. He went back, lived with his parents and his childhood room. He built up his whole life again. He's out. The compulsive behaviors, he's very successful, very rich, living abroad now. I was like, God, if I hadn't have pushed him out my basement, he probably would still be there. I thought I was doing him a favor.
Yes.
And there's another really pertinent example to me.
I ain't trying to work, man. I'm trying to go home and smoke, bro. Vote.
And listen, and this sounds really harsh, right? Because I tried paying for their therapy, tried paying for everything for this person, and eventually I got to the point where I said, honestly, I tried, don't talk to me about this anymore. Stop talking to me about it. Just don't message me about it. Don't talk to me about it anymore. They got better.
Yep. It's really about this. So Kai Erickson wrote this paper on deviance where he studied Puritan societies and found that no matter what group of humans you looked at, there were always going to be people who were on the margins of the society. He used the word deviance. His point being that groups of humans, so we just have these roles and we have these hierarchies, and there's always somebody on top and always somebody below. And when we're occupying a certain niche or when we stop occupying it, we make room for somebody else. When you stop
Exactly,
being
bro.
the hero
And like,
the savior, that person
that's a
had
thing
room
too,
to
bro.
stop
I'm
being
getting
the
to a
sick
point where I'm like,
victim.
am I smoking fake weed or some shit, bro?
And my last question on this then is, how do
Bro,
you
I don't
approach
even
that
get high no
conversation
more,
with
bro.
the person?
Like, I smoke
Because
so
so
much, I
often
don't
it's a
get
question
high,
of
bro.
frustration or shame
Like,
or blame.
it's fucking lame as
And
hell
what's
now,
the
bro.
best way to approach
It's
someone
lame.
who's struggling with a behavior? To express that you're concerned and to, I don't know, offer your help if that's a good thing.
I think we can always try to find our empathy for them without necessarily doing things that would perpetuate or enable that behavior. And we need to recognize that for many people with severe addiction, the only thing that will get them into recovery is real life consequences, real life negative consequences. And that our trying to protect them from that is not protecting them at all.
We've got to let them hit the rock bottom.
I mean, this is a hard one because you have a lot of families now dealing with children who are severely addicted to opioids, for whom, being out on the streets might really result in their death. So this is not for every situation.
No, for real. When I get kids, bro, I'm gonna make sure they never see me smoking. That's facts.
The majority of people with severe get into recovery as a result of a real life negative. Lost their job, lost their family, ended up in jail. Until they're on those severe just want to have the motivation to make a change.
Goes back to a quote I had a long time ago, some 10 years ago, that said, change happens when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of making a change.
There you go. That's a good one.
I want to talk about digital drugs. One of the subjects that's been a recurring theme on this podcast, inspired initially, I think it was mentioned in an episode we had, but then it was such a huge amount of the feedback we got in the comment section that I thought we need to talk about this more because clearly there's a lot of people suffering. We also then used a tool which looks at what people are Googling and searching a lot. And one of the most popular searches around the subject matter of addiction is pornography addiction.
Yeah.
It was number 1 and 4 in the search tool that we used. And the phrases people are using are how to stop pornography addiction, how to help someone with pornography addiction, how to rewire my brain, which are all correlated themes. So pornography addiction, something you see a lot.
Oh my gosh.
I have to create a little bit of a space actually before I ask this question because I did a porn debate on the show and I got a very long voice note from a good friend of mine who said, just watch the porn debate. There was 2 women there and a guy and me, Stephen. But I just wish someone had mentioned that women get addicted to porn too.
Yeah.
And then on the episode, one of the top 3 comments on the episode is, I'm a woman. It wasn't mentioned, but I also have a pornography addiction. And you've also kind of echoed that with the erotic novels that you mentioned, the romantic novels. So pornography addiction.
Yeah.
Do you see that often? And I guess critically, how does one go about overcoming that? And how?
Damn, this actually sounds like some good advice because I've been trying to do this shit, bro. But like,
So
it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like you don't get high, but still you want to get high.
And the most silent and shameful addictions that we have now.
Maybe I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna take like 2 days break and then smoke, then take 3 days break and smoke again. I like that idea.
To have other problems, and it's not until visit 3 or 4 that they finally fess up. I'm really here for a pornography addiction. There's so much shame around it. It's so incredibly shameful for people to admit that they are spending their time looking at these images, often associated with compulsive masturbation.
Like that.
Some people,
strong man.
Their addiction manifests by actually pursuing partners. So dating apps are highly addictive and meetups. All of this is related to sex and orgasm, which releases dopamine in the reward pathway. But it's not just the moment of orgasm. It's all of the rituals and the buildup and the searching that's related to it. Women can get addicted to pornography as well as men, although I would say that men outnumber women probably, in my clinical experience, 10 to 1. Women, however, are much more vulnerable to love addiction, which is also real, right? The pathological, compulsive falling in love with partners, and then getting into these relationships that are really dramatic and not healthy, and then falling out of love, and then pursuing another love partner. So these addictions are real. They are very harmful for people who get addicted. Ultimately, they're not even about sex. They're about human attachment and the desire for human attachment, and also just as a way to self-soothe and escape our own everyday suffering.
Bro, I'm gonna screenshot where you live at, bro. I'm gonna have to come down there, bro.
I'm particularly concerned about girls and boys.
This life ain't for me, bro. Like living over here and like I gotta basically sneak to smoke every time, bro. Just so I won't be bothered by cops, bro. It's like it just comes with too much, bro. It just comes with too fucking much, dog. It's like I'm sick and tired of this shit, bro.
On a site that has very graphic.
What's the harm of pornography? Watching pornography?
Well, there's a lot of potential harms. One of the harms, especially if combined with, compulsive masturbation, is that it's just simply addictive, which means that the more people do it, the more they want to do it, then they have the come down where they don't feel good. And then pretty soon it becomes like a compulsive, repetitive loop where they're spending large amounts of their day engaging in this activity. And that in itself is highly debilitating. But other harms, I think, that are significant are it really does.
That shit sound good, bro. That shit do sound good. And for me, shit.
I don't want to get into the whole thing of like, sex as exercise,
I'm gonna have to come, bro.
recreational fun.
I'm gonna have to pop out.
Something that's maybe more sacred, because I'm not here to judge any of that, except to say that if a main pathway for a young person to learn about sex is through watching pornography, that's going to give them a very distorted view of what real sex is like. Not to mention what relationships are like, right? And how sex becomes a part of an intimate relationship.
I've heard a few people say that pornography lowers our motivation the world and to pursue getting a job and getting a career and going to the gym, etc., etc. And through
Bro,
the lens
I
of what
used to
we've talked
trim
about
weed for a
today, where
living, bro.
dopamine was
It
this
sounds like, oh, it just, that shit's hard, bro. That shit's literally fucking hard. You just sitting there all fucking day, just trimming fucking weed, bro. That shit get to your nerve, bro. And then your fingers get all sticky and shit. And then trying to open up the fucking scissors because they got so much gumption. Then your fingers get the fucking hurting and shit. Your middle finger and your fucking thumb finger just feels like a rubber band been on it all day. It sounds easy, bro. That shit's trimming weed ain't no light project, bro. That shit's hard work.
why they're struggling to form relationships, why less men are potentially in college at the moment. Maybe some of the answers are in the fact of just like how men are wired, because if they're thinking this
Yes, bro.
through,
Shit's
men are
hard
more
work, bro.
likely to
I
have
literally,
a
bro.
disposition to these kinds of
When as
behaviors,
a
and these
kid, bro,
kinds
my
of
dad
behaviors are
he
more
brought me
likely
up,
to impact
and
and
we basically had
demotivate
to
and
wake up at three
destabilize men.
thirty every
Is
morning,
that all
bro.
like rough,
And we
broadly
had
accurate?
to like,
I
handle
absolutely
our
agree, which is
business
why I've
and be
talked
back by the
about
house
the
before 5:30,
smartphone
6
as a
o'clock,
masturbation
and then make
machine.
it to school for 7 o'clock, bro.
Essentially,
And I did that
these
my whole life,
devices
bro.
have become the
Like that
way
shit ain't no
that we
easy
meet
task, bro.
our physical,
You gotta be
emotional, and
walking up the
sexual,
hill with
intellectual
water and
needs.
shit.
And taken to the
It's
extreme, that would mean that
I can't
we're
believe I
no
lived the life that
longer
I live, bro.
relying
This
on
shit
other
just,
people to meet those needs.
I'm
We're
a real
meeting
yard man,
the
man.
needs ourselves
I'm
with
a real yard
this
man.
technology, with the devices. And I don't think that's a future that anybody wants taken to the extreme, right? Because we are social creatures. We need to connect with each other. Human connection is vital to a thriving life and survival in general. So yes, I have a lot of concerns that pornography is now replacing intimacy with people in real life.
Yeah, bro. I might end up doing the same shit with
Ability
my
with
sons.
people in
So
real
I
life.
ain't even mad at
These
my dad
expectations
for
to be
how
like
he brought
hard
me up.
work we have
I
to
might do
do
the same shit, bro.
to create and find
Oh
intimacy.
shit!
That
Somebody over
too,
here
and also
wanted.
just
Who the fuck is
expectations
that?
around sex.
Okay,
So
yeah.
a lot of folks that I work with sex addiction, as they try to give up pornography, compulsive masturbation, or whatever sexually addictive behaviors, what they find.
Shit. Who the heck is that? I, I think I got it. I don't know if it's real. Damn, that person is messed up. See that person face? I've seen that girl before, bro, but I don't know where. Bro, I know I seen her before, bro.
I see this bitch too. What? Insult. No, that's like saying you look at the bottom of my shoe.
Damn. I had to screenshot that shit. Yo, this is why I only smoke weed, bro. That person was met up. Oh my gosh. Anyways, back to
Find
the
is that they almost
podcast,
go in
man.
the opposite direction, and have zero interest in sex. They just don't have interest in sex with their real life partner, or they can't enjoy sex with their real life partner. Which all kind of makes sense, right? When you hijack the reward pathway with
Yeah, girls are like a bottle of a shoe, bro.
when you come back down to
Damn.
earth with your actual partner who's got his or her own needs,
I'm gonna go home and look at that screenshot later.
experience pleasure in that realm.
In an attempt to offer people out there now that are struggling with some kind of form of compulsive behavior or addiction a pathway to turn this around, what is step one? In your book, I read all these incredible ideas around the wisdom we can learn from addicts. I learned about dopamine fasting, and I also learned about radical honesty and the role that that plays. What is the process? For someone listening to this right now, they're struggling with one of these addictions.
And we don't take the disrespect around here, especially when it comes to marijuana. Well, I don't know what weed you're smoking on, but the weed I'm smoking on don't turn me to a moron. Shit turn me to a superhero.
That it's problematic, and that
Open up my third eye. I get the levitating objects and shit.
person about why we do the behavior, what we do. Step three would be honestly making a list of all of the problems with the behavior. How is it interfering with my goals? And as we talked about, my values. What do other people say to me about how it's problematic? Is one of the problems potentially that it's just not working anymore the way that it used to, right? I'm developing tolerance. I need more to get the same effect. It's doing the opposite of what I want it to do. And after we've done all that, really done a really honest self-assessment
Exactly. She put us in the
about
whole
the
moral
behavior,
category. That's crazy.
I recommend a 30-day dopamine fast. And we're not really fasting from dopamine, right? Because we're not really ingesting dopamine. What we're doing a fast from is whatever that substance or behavior is that is causing these kinds of problems potentially. Maybe we aren't even really sure, but we think it might be.
Man, my
Give it up
vote's
for
not
30
looking good
days.
at all, bro.
Why 30 days?
I'm
Well, we
gonna,
know
I'm
that
not going home
2
fucking with
weeks is
y'all,
not
bro.
enough, right?
I'm
We know
just
that
getting
from
further and further from the
this imaging
goalposts.
study,
Shit's
right? That people are
ridiculous.
still in that dopamine deficit state 2 weeks after stopping. But 30 days based on
Exactly. So judgmental, bro. That's crazy. Let me see your profile picture.
for most people, no matter
I'm
the
mad I can't
drug
see your
and no
profile picture.
matter sort of your severity and chronicity, once they get to about 30 days, they begin to feel
Oh,
better.
that's a man.
They begin to come out of that tunnel of constant craving. Not necessarily have to rely on this substance or on this behavior. What I always tell folks when they're preparing for the dopamine fast is just remember you will feel worse before you feel better. But that is withdrawal mediated suffering. Once you get through those first 14 days, you'll begin to feel better. And potentially by 30 days, you'll feel much better than you have in a really long time. Now, this is not to say that 30 days of fasting is going to cure your addiction, not at all. But it's the beginning. It's the beginning of being able to see causality, getting some insight. It's an experiment, right? Our lives are one big experiment. What better way to understand the variables in our lives than to change one thing, one variable, and see what happens?
Do we then need to, you talk about this concept of self-binding?
Yes.
Self-binding.
Right.
What role does that play in all of this?
Self-binding is a way of acknowledging that if we rely on willpower alone, we will not be successful, especially living in this drugified world. And what we need to do is anticipate desire before we're in the throes of desire by creating both literal and metacognitive or thought, Geduncan experiment, like barriers between ourselves and our drug of choice. So these barriers can be actual physical barriers, like putting our device into a kitchen safe and locking it up over the night, or leaving it outside of our bedroom, or getting the potato chips, the alcohol, the cannabis out of the house, deleting our contact drug dealer's information and telling our drug dealer, don't call me and I won't call you.
Because these are all cues.
These are all cues, that's right.
And the cues can be physical things. So someone I see, cues can also be basically an emotion. You talked about halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
I say at this point it don't make no sense. I might as well go home.
Green room over there for me, and the only time where I'm susceptible to not eating well is late. And so when you said the hungry, angry, lonely, tired thing, that is probably the state that I'm in sometimes when I get home. Certainly hungry, certainly tired, probably a little bit lonely as well, but certainly those two things. And that seems to be when I'm most susceptible to making a regrettable decision as related to my dopamine. I've also wondered if dopamine is responsible for what people almost call like the sugar cravings that we have. So what I've observed is in previous years of my life, when I was eating lots of sugar, I would then go into about like a 2-week cycle of like binging the sugar. And right now I'm in like a really great cycle with my food where I have no cravings for the sugar. I'm staying in a hotel here in LA. There's a mini bar in the room with Oreos and gummy, all these chocolates and all these things. And I haven't touched them because for some reason in this like couple of weeks of my life or whatever, I just don't have the cravings anymore. But I kind of suspect that if I start eating them, then the next 4 weeks will be a car crash.
Yes.
Why does this happen?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I think this is sort of a universal experience. So, first of all, sugar is addictive. It lights up the same reward pathway as drugs and alcohol. Clear dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, part of the reward pathway in response to sugar. And when we quit sugar, we have a come down, right? We go into withdrawal, and it's manifested in all the different ways that we've talked.
Ah, you very close, but it's not staff zone. You must be from Florida. Oh, staff zone. Staff zone is a word I hear. I don't know.
But if we can get through that period, get out of that vortex of addictive craving,
Bro, I'm gonna have to go to staff zone because it don't make sense showing up here no more, bro. I'm gonna have to go to fucking staff zone, bro. This shit make no sense.
have the feeling that the cravings only get worse with time. Even though we logically may have experienced otherwise by giving it up before, we have the feeling this is going to last forever. It never does, right? With time, the craving goes away. And once we are in that arena where we're not constantly craving, we might have something that triggers the craving, right? But like stress, but generally we're not dealing with a craving. If we were then to re-expose our brains to a little bit of sugar, immediately back in the vortex of craving. And there's an experiment I love that illustrates this. It's an experiment in rats, where rats were injected with cocaine, the same amount of cocaine every day for 7 days.
Yes, that's the question. Should I go home? Yes or no?
Hiding in the
Please
shadows
vote yes.
of the cage to progressively running a little bit more and a little bit more. By day 7, they were in a
How is staff zone, man? Tell me about staff zone, bro. Because staff zone is right up the street from me.
and there was no more cocaine injected after 7 days. And no cocaine or any addictive substance administered to the rats for a year, which is a rat lifetime, a really long time. It would make you think, oh, that there's no more cocaine in the system.
I'm guessing you need a car to go there though, because my car is having problems, bro. Like I'm getting ready to just throw this shit away, bro. So do you need a car? They provide work.
That there's
Like
some
they
kind of
provide a vehicle. My bad.
echo in our brains once we've been exposed to, and especially if we become addicted to a particular substance, such that even with sustained abstinence on the order of years and decades, if we are re-exposed to that drug, we can immediately be plunged into the depths of our addiction. There's no ramp up period that happens. And of course, we see this all the time. People with alcohol addiction who are then exposed to alcohol and right back to their max use.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to look them up, because I keep hearing a lot about them. I'm gonna be right there.
Opioid system, so there's some homology or similarity between alcohol and opioids, and then immediately being plunged into opioid addiction, which then leads them back to alcohol addiction.
It made me think about children. It made me think about children because if I'm a 5-year-old and I'm binging on sugar,
Yeah.
this sets me up for a life where I'm going to be. I mean, based on the analogy, the experiment I just had, based on the experiment I just had there, it sets me up for a life where I'm going to so easily slip right back into that addiction for sugar. And also, I know that the brain isn't fully developed when we're children, so maybe the effect is even more lasting and significant. Is any of that true?
Yeah, it's all true, which is why a big focus of the addiction medicine field is prevention and trying to make sure that we protect kids' brains from the harms of these addictive substances and behaviors.
Like what?
From sugar to digital media, video games, pornography, social media, or any other drug, nicotine. So many kids are vaping now, taking 50 plus puffs a day on their nicotine vape, cannabis, alcohol.
What's going on in the brain if a kid is exposed to those things?
So essentially at age 5, we have
What's
more
up, Pete from
neurons
Australia?
and
Shout out to
neuronal
you, man.
connections than we have in the rest of our adult lives. About 50% more neuronal connections than we'll have it as adults, which is what makes us such good learners when we're kids. Like kids can just absorb anything because they're sort of like these totipotent sponges with all these neurons and all these neuronal connections. But as we age through adolescence to about age 25, we cut back, or what's called prune, the neural circuits that we don't use, and we myelinate or make more efficient the neural circuits that we use most often, such that by age 25, we are left with the neurological scaffolding that will serve us for the rest of our adult lives. That means that if we're engaging in addictive, maladaptive coping at a young age, we're elaborating a neural circuitry based on that maladaptive coping. which is going to set
No, I already said that, bro. I already said that. By 8 o'clock, I'm gone, bro. For real, for real.
child and adolescent brain is so plastic or totipotent or so changeable. That's also a very hopeful message. It means that even a young person exposed at a young age to an addictive substance,
Anthony Lee, are you from Florida?
their brain is still plastic enough, we can rewire them. Whereas when I treat people in their 70s, 80s, who have been, smoking pot their whole lives, alcohol, mainly it was manageable. Now all of a sudden they're tired, they're in their 60s all this time, pot's a lot more potent. They can develop full-blown addiction.
Yep. Yep, and I'm waiting a full 3 minutes.
Treat them.
I'm in my car, roll up,
That would allow them
smoke.
to regenerate.
I'm gonna wait till the room get a little empty, then I'm gonna come back in. I think that's what I'm gonna do.
That should have, as it relates to dopamine.
Oh my God, we talked about.
Yeah, bro, might as well hit it for real. Might have just dip for real. What time is it now? Oh, damn it.
It's going to be screaming at the screen.
About. Yeah. Well. For someone who had repeatedly tried to quit on their own and really to be an exercise utility, that person should go and get professional help. Maybe they need to go to a residential treatment center. I also would recommend dopamine fasting or just quitting your drug of choice if you're life-threatening.
Yep, I'm waiting a full 2 minutes. Every minute count, man. I might walk out of here in a minute. I walk out, somebody name get called.
Go see a
I'll be mad.
professional. Get help with a medical sustain abstinence for a period of time. So, I would blanket the whole thing with like the caveat, go see your addiction.
Thank you so much. It's been so unbelievably thought-provoking for me in so many ways.
Because you can imagine, I got here like 4:50. Somebody got here before the gate even opened up at what 3:30. Somebody did that shit. Somebody woke up at 3:30 in the morning, came out here, and still ain't went to go to work. Imagine that shit.
And this scale analogy is particularly memorable because that helps me to think through many of the behaviors that I have in my life that I've either struggled with or become quite stubborn in various ways. But also,
damn, it's not 8 o'clock yet. That's
and a couple of lights on to some of the things I said about like my sugar, eating sugar, and even like going to the gym and why like my motivation can seem to fluctuate with the gym sometimes. It's so unbelievably important because this little neurotransmitter seems to control so much of our lives, and we're never taught anything about it. So we become these kind of
Nini's Orbit. What's up with you?
This brain, which is firing off all of these neurotransmitters that are determining who we are, who we become, and also who we don't become. Thank you so much. I know you were nervous coming here today, but I have to tell you, you are very brilliant.
8 o'clock, man. Time for my second wake and bake.
Because you're really built for this medium.
My second wake and bake. I'm gonna come back and try this again.
While also being incredibly smart.
I think that's the plan.
Communicate. So please carry on. Because I don't think, although you overcame the difficulty of those nerves, I think there's so many hundreds of thousands of people listening out there. So thankful that you did. Like, really thankful.
Yeah, I gotta go get my mind right, bro. Shit done pissed me off, bro.
So thank you.
The worst part is, bro, I'm about to smoke and I'm hungry as fuck.
Here's a question for the next guest, without knowing who they're going to be leaving it for. What is the most recent piece of information that changed your life?
I think the most recent piece of information that was very impactful for me was the realization that we are probably going to be cybernetically enhanced in the future and interfacing with technology in a way that's completely seamless.
Damn.
And that this is inevitable.
And cyborgs.
Or at least we're going to be surrounded by the technology in a way that's invisible. And it's going to be just completely integrated into our lives. Whether it'll actually be under the skin, I think it will be.
Damn, you seriously ain't heard nothing or learned nothing from this podcast? Are you serious right now? Are you serious right now, man? Are you kidding me? See, you ain't learn nothing about controlling your like your dopamine. Is basically the reason why you want to open Twitter and jerk off. You know, it's basically the reason why you smoke. It don't really have nothing to do with you know. I don't know how to explain it. It got nothing to do with a lot of shit that people think it is. It's just dopamine controlling. You gotta control your dopamine, bro. You control your dopamine, you change your life, bro. That's what the whole podcast is about. Controlling your dopamine, controlling yourself, bro. You gotta learn that first. That's the key to life. Yeah, bro. Get high, dopamine kicked in, bro.
I can see in that so much that's really terrifying, especially when I think about the way it's going to change us as humans. My big fear about it is that we will become more and more isolated, and then we'll end up sort of in these little cubicles of our own making, scattered alone all across, planet Earth. I hope it doesn't lead to that. That's my worry.
It's interesting when we become connected to the internet and we truly interface with the internet, we really don't need to use our physical being anymore because we can experience all the joy and adventure and travel digitally. And it just messes with the incentive structures like we've talked about with dopamine. It changes our ability to get up and go and to do things. That's a lovely funding. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to, teach people.
I'm gonna get all my coworkers high.
Super helpful. And I'm going to link both of these books below. I've got the Dopamine Nation book, which was the original, I believe.
Yes.
And then following that, you released Dopamine Nation Workbook, which is a practical guide to find balance in an age of indulgence. I highly recommend everybody reads these. I'm going to go and reread them on my journey home back to London tonight. So I really, really appreciate you reading these books. And honestly, everyone needs to go read these books. I'm sure they will. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Do you know 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February? It's because we focus too much on the end goal and we forget the small daily actions that actually move us forward. Those actions that are easy to do are also easy not to do in life. It's easy to save $1, so it's also easy not.
Nah, dead ass, bro. Because the reason I'm thinking about quitting right now is because I can't afford it. Gang, you right. Most people quit because they can't afford it. I simply can't afford this shit no more, bro.
To making one small improvement each day, one tiny step in the right direction.
Bro, if I could have grown myself, I would, bro. I hate being in Florida, bro. They so tight about everything, bro. Like, I wish I was in California, bro.
Has a big difference over time. And that is the 1% mindset, which is why we created the 1% Diary, a 90-day journal designed to help you be consistent and focus on the small wins and make real progress over time. It also gives you access to the 1% community, a space where you can stay accountable, motivated, inspired, along with many others on the same journey. We launched the 1% Diary in November and it sold out. So now we're doing a second drop. Join the waitlist at thediary.com and you'll be the first to know as soon as it's back in stock.
All the stoners come out of nowhere, bro. All the stoners literally come out of nowhere, man. How y'all sparking up before me? What's wrong with y'all? Y'all be weird, bro. You supposed to spark up together, bro. Y'all hold up. Wait till I finish roll up, gang. Wait. No, for real, I can't imagine working where you work at, bro. I can't imagine that shit, bro. Like, I would have to quit. I'm too much of a fiend, bro. Like, I can't control myself at this point, bro. Imagine I'm over here cutting up the weed, bro. And then I'm cutting up some other weed on the side so I can smoke while I'm cutting up the weed. I can't imagine me doing this shit. That shit would actually be crazy. Yeah, trim one butt, smoke the other, bro. The only way.
What's your thoughts on ADHD?
Oof, this is a big topic and I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here, but there's something fishy going on. We can get to that. Nir Ayal, one of the world's
This is why I
leading
smoke
experts
too,
in
'cause I
procrastination,
ADHD,
named the
bro.
prophet of habit forming, talking about how to keep focused, how to set the right goals.
This is a must
Who
listen.
you talking about?
Avoiding
Not me. I'm an
distraction
island boy.
is the
I
key
work
to
every fucking
not
day.
living with regret. 90% of the time that we get distracted, it's
I
not because
work
of what's
most
happening
night.
outside of us, it's because of what's happening inside of us. If you can't sit with a friend without looking at your phone every 3 minutes, it's not the phone. It's your inability to deal with the discomfort of silence or boredom. All human behavior is driven by a desire to escape discomfort. It's not hard to do something you enjoy, but it's how do I do the stuff that I really don't feel like doing it? I found this technique, thousands of studies have shown this to be very effective. If you don't master that, everything else. So the first step is
the number of people being diagnosed with ADHD has significantly risen.
ADHD is a very real thing that can be debilitating for people that suffer with it.
ADHD is real, but I have a lot of
Bro, I'm trying to move to Miami right now, bro. Literally, bro. I'm trying to move Miami right now. I know it's expensive and what's not. You mean you geeked out? Peter W, what you trying to say? Geeked out? You geeked out too many times? Oh shit, my bad, gang. Let me see.
concerns. 10% of children in the United States are diagnosed with ADHD.
I'm bugging out. You gonna wait on me? Say less. I'm real fast.
Generation to believe that solutions come in pill bottles. We do not.
I clean forgot I told y'all. Hold up.
Consequences. The whole chemical imbalance theory. No psychiatrist will tell you that's true. Scientifically false. Skills before pills. And what I hate about a lot of people in the ADHD community, they feel like it's an identity, and that is so dangerous. We need to look at ADHD as.
Would you like to go for dinner with me and my guests here on the Diary of a CEO? We are holding dinner parties all around the world over the coming months.
Bro, what type of weed you smoking, gang?
YouTube channel are invited. We're inviting 20 subscribers.
Hey, you distracting me, Peter.
So,
Hold up, you got people waiting on me. Hold
and my
up.
guests here on the Diary of a CEO, I have a favor to ask you. All you've got to do is hit the subscribe button. And I hope to see you at dinner somewhere around very soon. Nia, it is very good to see you again because I have to admit you've changed my life, but you also changed my father's life. You're the reason my father quit smoking. I've told this story maybe once or twice before, but once upon a time I came home for Christmas and I left your first book, Hooked, in his bathroom. He picked that book up once I'd left, read it, understood habit loops, and from that moment he took steps which led him to quit smoking. So I have to say thank you, but also you've been on this podcast once before, a long, long time ago, when not many people were listening. And from that conversation, there were small nuggets which have stayed with me every day since. My first question to you, Nia, for people that have just clicked onto this podcast and that are thinking about whether to listen or not, can you tell me who should listen, why they should listen, and what value they're going to gain from listening to the conversation we're about to have?
Yeah.
Bro, somebody told me in certain areas, like, what you mean by balling? Like, do you think I'm working more hard in Orlando than if I move to Charlotte? Does it even have temp services in Charlotte? Like, does it have temporary work? Because I can't work a regular job, bro. That shit's hurt. It hurt. I get depressed when I work a regular job. Does it have temp service in Charlotte?
So first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be back for the second episode. I think the reason to listen is because regret sucks.
And Pete, I don't know what you be smoking on. Somebody was lacing your weed, bro. I don't know. Somebody was probably putting Molly in it. Somebody was putting crack in it. But somebody had to be lacing you, because I smoked my whole life. I ain't never passed out, gang.
Having regret in your life is awful. And so what I want to minimize with the work I do, and frankly, I write for myself more than anyone else, I try and solve my own problems, is I don't want to look back on my life with regret, not for a day, not for a month, not for a year, not for a lifetime, certainly. And so avoiding distraction is the key to not living with regret, because we all basically know what to do, right?
What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about, my boy? So you saying because your weed is so strong, you have to mix it with something else? Like what? What you mixing your weed with, gang? The fuck?
We know we should exercise. We know we should eat right. We know we should spend quality time with our family. We know we should do the hard work that we have to do to move our careers forward. But many times we don't do it, even though we know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, Google it. It's all out there, right? So the problem is not that we don't know what to do. The problem is we keep getting in our own way. And so it's really about becoming indistractable. This is how we live the kind of lives we deserve.
You described becoming indistractable on Twitter as the single most important skill that anybody in the 21st century can adopt and learn.
I have to look that up.
Yeah, and I think it's the macro skill, right? Because there's no facet of your life that is not affected by your ability to control your attention. So whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's getting into relationships, whether it's business, whether it's physical fitness, all of these things depend on your ability to follow through. And so that's why I think it's the skill of the century, that if you don't master that skill, everything else becomes much more difficult, if not impossible. But if you do, if you can become indistractable, I made up the word indistractable. It's meant to sound like indestructible. It's meant to be a superpower. It's meant to be a trait that we want in order to achieve our dreams. And so, my goal was not to tell people what to do, right? I'm not going to say you need to exercise, you need to live right, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's not my goal at all. If you want to play video games for your waking hours, that's fine with me. What I want to help people do is do the things that they themselves want to do. Whatever it is that you say you want to do with your time and attention, that's what I want to help you do.
So why don't we do what we want to do? Because as you say, the information's all out there. We have Google, we have all of these books, we have podcasts like this. But regardless, we've had loads of health podcasts in a row on this show where we've had the best health experts from all around the world. And I'm sure there's people that have listened to those episodes, have heard, don't eat sugar, don't do this, don't do this, do this, do this, do this.
Right.
But they're still at home struggling now to turn that intention into behavior. What is standing in our way? What's getting in our way?
Yeah, so I wish I could give you a one-sentence answer, but let me back up and kind of frame this a bit. So the best way to understand what distraction is to understand what distraction is not. And to do that, we have to start with where the word comes from. So the word distraction comes from this Latin root trahare, which means to pull. And if you notice that the opposite of distraction is not focus. Many people say, I don't want to be distracted, I want to be focused. But that's not the opposite of the word. The opposite of distraction is traction. That both words end in the same 6 letters, A-C-T-I-O-N, that spells action, reminding us that distraction is not something that happens to us, it is an action we ourselves take. So we have traction, we have distraction. Traction is any action that pulls us towards what we say we're going to do. Things that move us closer to our values, help us become the kind of person we want to become. Those are acts of traction. The opposite of traction, distraction, is any action that pulls us away from what we plan to do, farther from our goals, farther from becoming the person we want to become. So this is really important. This isn't just semantics, because I would argue that any action that you do with intent, anything that is planned ahead, anything that involves forethought, is traction. So there's a lot of talk today about how, social media is melting our brains and video games are bad for you. I don't agree. I think that anything that you plan to do with your time and attention, as long as it's done with intent, is fine. That becomes an act of traction, as long as it's planned for with intent. As Dorothy Parker said, the time you plan to waste is not wasted time. Now, just because something is a work-related task doesn't mean it's not a distraction. In fact, that's the worst kind of distraction, because these distractions trick you into not even realizing you're getting distracted. I'll give you a perfect example. For years, I would sit down at my desk. I would take out my to-do list. By the way, we can talk about later why to-do lists are one of the worst things you can do for your personal productivity. We can get to that. I would sit down at my desk and I would say, okay, I've got that big project that I need to work on right now. Nothing's going to get in my way. I'm going to stay focused. Here I go. I'm going to get started. But first, let me check some email, right? Let me just scroll that Slack channel. Let me just do that one thing on my to-do list, that easy task, just to get started here, just to get the rhythm going, right? That's a work-related task. And what I didn't realize that is the most pernicious form of distraction, the distraction that you don't even realize is happening. Because if it's not what you said you were going to do in advance within your time and attention, it is by definition a distraction, right? So what we tend to do is we prioritize the easy work. We prioritize the urgent work as opposed to the...
Now let me stop you right there. If Charlotte is anything like Atlanta, I do not want nothing to do with Charlotte. So you telling me it got a whole lot of gay guys walking around like in Charlotte? And transgenders and shit? Because if that's what I'm coming to Charlotte to, I'm not coming to Charlotte, gang. I'm not.
Hard and important work we have to do to move our lives and careers forward. So just because it's a work-related task doesn't mean it's a distraction. That's the most awful type of distraction. It's not the video games, it's not the social media.
Man.
It's the distractions we don't even know are distracting us from what we said we would do with our time. So now we've got traction, we've got distraction. Now the other two parts of the model involve what we call triggers. Triggers are these things that prompt us to action. We have two kinds of triggers. External triggers are things in our outside environment. These are things that we tend to blame, like cell phones and our computers and all the pings, dings, and rings in our life. But studies find that those account for only 10% of our distractions. Only 10% are caused by these external triggers. So what's the other 90%? 90% of the time that we get distracted, it's not because of what's happening outside of us, it's because of what's happening inside of us. These are called internal triggers. Internal triggers are these uncomfortable emotional states that we seek to escape. And so that's
No, you can't smoke crack in my car, Kansas. The fuck?
the first step to becoming indistractable, and answers your question around why, by and large, even though despite knowing what to do, we don't do it, it's because all of these problems are an emotion regulation problem. That in fact, time management is pain management. I would argue weight management is pain management. Money management is pain management. In fact, all human behavior is about a desire to escape discomfort. And then answers your question around why don't we just do what we say we're going to do? It's because we don't realize that these are always emotion regulation problems. So that's the first step to becoming indistractable, is mastering the internal triggers. Then the second step, we talked about traction earlier, making time for traction. The third step, hacking back the external triggers. And then finally, preventing distraction with pacts. And so that's the model, these 4 steps. And then, of course, we can go in as much depth as you like. But if you understand these 4 fundamental steps, and this is what took me 5 years writing this book, namely because I kept getting distracted, right? I was very distractible myself, and I wrote the book for me, as I mentioned earlier. But it was when I boiled down the hundreds of studies and research, and you can see there's 35 pages of citations in the book. It wasn't until I could kind of solidify this model that I could make it practical enough to change lives. It certainly did mine.
I'm gonna lie, hybrid. Y'all ever seen this one? I got all 3 of them mixed, bro. Hybrid, indica, and sativa, bro. When I tell you this the only shit I buy now, that's the only distillate that I buy now, bro. That shit is actually fucking gas. And you can switch it, like you could go from indica, sativa, you know. Oh, you talking about the real one? The only real one I smoke is the real bud. But I don't smoke the real bud in the pen, because if you get caught with the real bud in the pen, your ass is facing a lot of time in the pen. In the pen, nigga. Your ass is going to jail for some years if you get caught with a real one. Yeah, your ass would be going to jail for some years.
One of the things this podcast has taught me from speaking to all these people across multiple fields is that sometimes we can feel like our body, our wiring is against us, especially as it relates to...
Yes, bro. Bro, they recently pulled me over and they broke it, bro. And he thought it was the real pen. And the motherfucker tried to send me to jail, bro. He did send me to jail. I was in jail for like 2 days before my case got dismissed, bro. Because they legalized Delta 8, but they don't have no tools for the cop to test how much weed is inside your pen. So, like, you basically smoking Delta 8 is almost as bad as it's worse than smoking regular weed. Because a lot of time they be thinking, oh, if it don't have no marking on the pen, that's why you see me have markings on my pen. I don't smoke without the markings on it. Because if it don't got the marking, they could think that it's regular weed, and they could try to bust you for it. And if you get busted for regular weed, bro, your ass is fucked. Fucked. Properly fucked. Lube. No lube. Fucked.
Health, right? So, we know sugar is bad.
All
so
right.
why does our brain send us these cravings to go and eat
I'm about to
sugar?
light up. You guys ready?
And in the case of distractions and sort of behavioral psychology, I know instinctively and intuitively that distractions, like hanging out on TikTok for an hour, is bad. But my brain is doing it. What does that tell us about how we should go about adopting behavior change?
Yeah, so that's why it's really about this holistic model. So that's what took me the most time to figure out, was what are the 4 mandatory components of living without regret, of doing what you say you're going to do. So the first step is mastering these internal triggers, figuring out why you feel this way, right? What is that underlying sensation? So if you're trying to avoid that chocolate bar, it might be hunger.
Hold up. I'm about to light up. You guys ready? 5, 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year! I'm dumb. I smoke in my house. I don't smoke in my car, though. I'm delivery driver. I can't fuck up my driver's license. For real, bro. Them niggas was trying to get my ass, bro. Them niggas was literally trying to get my ass, bro. I couldn't believe that shit. Bro, I literally couldn't believe that shit, bro. For real. Them niggas was trying to fuck my life up, bro. But I was like, bro, it's Delta 8, bro. The fact that you don't have a tool to test how much weed is inside my pen is crazy work. That's like you sending me to jail for speeding and you don't have a gun, a speeding gun. How the fuck you know how fast I was going? Bro, I shouldn't even be rolling with this pen on me right now after what I went through, bro. Bro, I went to jail for the first time in my life over a pen, a Delta 8 pen, bro. A nigga saw my booty crack. A nigga saw my... Let's not talk about that. Let's light up. Let's light up. Let's light up, bro. I'm bugging. Damn. Yes, bro. I had to go to jail, bro. When you go to jail, bro, your probation officers... Oh, not the probation officers. The niggas who work in the jail. I don't know what the fuck you call them. The police who work in the jail, bro. Like, bro, he told me to bend over, bro. And I felt so violated, bro. I couldn't believe that shit, bro. Talking about... Cough! Cough! Stop playing with me, man. Cough! I'm like, yo, bro, chill. Yeah, correction officers, bro. Yeah. That shit was so embarrassing, bro. I'm opening a lawsuit against them right now, bro. I've been having nightmares ever since that day I went to jail, bro. Like, that shit been fucking terrorizing me, bro. Anyways, let's light up, man. That's when you fart in their face. Bro, a lot of people, like, I don't got money like that. But I've been saving to go Miami. So I got some type of money because I've been saving for a long time. So, bro, I'm spending all this money getting body cameras. I'm trying to post a body camera footage. Put some dirt on it. You live. Oh my God, that's how you feel about my feelings, bro? No, bro, that's fucked up. They had no right to do me like that, bro. I was in my own neighborhood, bro. Talk about put some dirt on it. I'm not gonna put no dirt on it. And no. If I was white, they would have never took me to jail, bro. If I was white, 100% guarantee you that they would have never took me to jail, bro. And that's why I'm not letting it go. Because the fact that I can't chill out in my own neighborhood. I wasn't doing nothing, bro. I was just sitting in my own neighborhood, bro. With my little sister, bro. Like,
Or it might not be hunger, right? So I used to be clinically obese. And I'll tell you what, I did not eat to excess because I was hungry. I was eating to excess because I was lonely. I was eating to excess because I was bored. I was eating to excess because I felt guilty about how much I had just eaten. It wasn't just about the hunger, right? Very few people who are obese are just hungry all the time.
Bro, that's the same shit I say, bro. It's like, because I'm black, I'm automatically guilty, bro. I went to jail, bro, and he talking about, oh, I'm out here trying to serve and protect. You know, I've seen a lot of people got killed over buying weed. What the fuck are you talking about? So you automatically put me in the category because you think I'm smoking weed. So you put me in the category off rip. If I was a white person in the car smoking weed and I had that pen on me, you wouldn't have took me to jail for the pen, bro. I guarantee you. I guarantee you.
That's not what's going on. It's because we're eating our feelings. That's what's happening. So that's the first step. We have to understand the deeper reason.
How did you
man, I
understand
gotta
that?
quit too, bro.
A lot of work, a lot of figuring out stuff in my life to help me understand that. And I think actually that's where my fascination with what I do today, in terms of, it's the same exact reason that we would overdo our use of technology. It's not the technology's fault, guys. I hate to tell you this. I wish I could blame Zuckerberg and TikTok, but these are just tools, right? And then before those, there were other tools. They used to call our generation couch potatoes. And before that, it was the radio was the moral panic. And before that, it was comic books. There's always some moral panic around, oh, this is melting our brains.
You see a young black kid in a 2015 Chevy Malibu, they automatically think I'm a drug dealer. And then he was searching my car, and he asked me to open up my trunk because he couldn't figure out how to open my trunk. And I told him no. And he got mad. Bitch, that's your job, not my job. The fuck?
Because we don't want to face the facts that we are looking for escape from these internal triggers. Right? Time management is pain management. All human behavior is driven by desire to escape discomfort. So when you realize that you know what, I was just unable to deal with these sensations in a healthful way that moved me towards traction. I was trying to escape them with distraction. It's not until you understand what sensations you're trying to escape from that you can deal with them. If you can't sit around the table with a friend without looking at your phone every 3 minutes, it's not the phone. It's your inability to deal with the discomfort of maybe having silence or boredom or whatever else is going on in your life. So that has to be the first step. It's not the only step, but that's the first step.
I'm really compelled by, really interested in how you figured out the thing you were trying to
That backward gave me bubble guts.
escape from, because I think that's the starting point, which is a very difficult starting point for most people. They can see the sort of compulsive behavior that's maybe making them live outside of their values or causing them to excessively eat or excessively watch porn or whatever it might be. But diagnosing the root cause of that.
Bro, that's what I did, bro. He kept looking and he found nothing, bro. So he saw the pen and he used that as his only fallback. Talking about, oh, he spot weed in my pen. It's a Delta 8 pen. Of course, you're going to find weed in it. It's about the amount of weed. You have something to detect weed in my pen, but you don't have something to detect the amount of weed. How the fuck? This law got passed in 2018. How the fuck you still don't got a tool to detect how much weed is inside my pen?
Is a difficult thing to do. Most of us don't know what we don't know. And,
It is and it isn't. I mean, I'm not, you don't have to go to therapy. Not that there's anything wrong with it. If it's helpful, please do it. But that's not a requirement. Something as simple as, so whenever I work, I have on my desk, I have a little Post-it note and a pen handy. And when I get distracted, or when I even feel this.
When you say Pookie, you talking about meow? You talking about cat? You was addicted to cat?
Of distraction, just noting down that sensation, just writing down what is it that I felt right before the distraction. So I write every day, and all I want to do when I write, you know this, right? When you write, all you want to do is go Google something or do some research or go check email for a quick sec, or let me just find that one thing that might be, and they're all distractions. They're all taking you away from the core thing you need to do, which you said you would do, which is right. And
I got addicted to gambling one time, but it never lasted. I don't know why, because every time I did, I hit the jackpot. Like, I win more than I lose. It just never caught on.
So if I can just pause for a second and reflect on what was that sensation that I was feeling right before. It was boredom, it was anxiety, it was fearfulness, it was uncertainty. Just writing it down is an incredible first step towards gaining power over that discomfort, because then you can start to identify it. And so what I'll do many times is just pause to reflect on, wait a minute, what's going on there? Right? What is that sensation? Because then you can begin to do what's called reframing the trigger. So now when I feel the sensation of wanting to get distracted, I say, you know what? What's going on here? Okay, I'm feeling the sensation because I'm stressed. Why am I stressed? Because this is really important to me. I want to get this right for my readers and for myself. And so reframing it as not a negative, but something that happens not to me, but for me, that sensation is a sign that I can listen to. I think most of us, we think when we feel this discomfort, that's happening to us, right? But it's not, it's happening for us. It's a signal for us to listen to. Now, how we interpret it is up to us. And that's where the magic happens. If you interpret it as something that is harmful, is dangerous, that you need to escape, right? You don't want to feel that uncomfortable sensation. You look for distraction. But what we find is that high performers across every field, when you think about the arts, when you think about sports, business, high performers, when they feel those internal triggers, they experience the same internal triggers the rest of us do. They experience loneliness and stress and anxiety just like everyone else does. But they deal with it by using it as rocket fuel to push them towards traction. Whereas distractible people, as soon as they feel that discomfort, they try and escape it with distraction. That's the difference.
That's one of the things that you said to me when we spoke last time that really has had a profound impact on my life, specifically around the area of procrastination. You said about that, which is like taking a moment to pause and ask yourself which psychological discomfort you're trying to escape from in the moment. And then that second step. So now I'm clear. I'm trying not to do this book because this particular chapter, I just don't feel that competent on. I don't feel like I've researched it. It's making my brain feel a bit hot thinking about it. I reframe it and go, okay, so I've understood it now. Then what do I do?
Yeah. So step one is
understand it.
Master those internal triggers.
Yeah.
Or they become your master.
Yeah.
That's step number one. There's a bunch of techniques. We're just covering the surface. There's over a dozen different techniques that you can use to help you master those internal triggers. Now, the second step is to make time for traction.
Okay.
So when you have those doubts, one of these techniques that is really life-changing is scheduling time for worry. Scheduling time for worry. That what happens is in the moment, we feel these feelings, we think these thoughts, and
No, I see that too much, bro. Bro, I ain't gonna call no names because I don't know who be watching my YouTube channel. Bro, I got a family member, bro. They be walking into the fucking casino with literally all their money, bro. I really believe that will be happening, bro. Cause ain't no way, bro. The person just always broke. But I ain't calling no names.
a distractible person will say, well, I got to deal with that sensation right now. I have to work through whatever it is that I'm feeling right now. And they stop everything to do that. And that's not the right method. The right method is to write down that sensation and get back to the task at hand as quickly as possible using these 4 strategies. Then later on, right now that you've written down what that sensation is, you're going to make time in your calendar to think about that sensation.
So
start processing it.
Using the book example, I've hit chapter 12 and I'm struggling with this chapter.
Right.
So
you step number 1, you have these tools.
Yep.
Like maybe I can digress for a second. I'll tell you my favorite tool for mastering internal triggers. It's called the 10-minute rule. This comes from acceptance and commitment therapy. And the 10-minute rule says that you can give in to any distraction. Any distraction. Maybe it's smoking that cigarette if you're trying to quit. Maybe it's eating that piece of chocolate cake if you're on a diet. Maybe it's checking social media, whatever it is, whatever distraction. You can give in to that distraction, but not right now. You can give in 10 minutes. Don't misunderstand, not for 10 minutes. Sometimes people get it wrong. It's in 10 minutes, okay? So what does that do? What that does is we talked about psychological reactance earlier, and you asked, what do you do about psychological reactance? You're allowing yourself to acknowledge that you are in control. That you decide. What many people do is they have strict abstinence, right? Strict abstinence says, no, I will not do it, right? I won't eat sugar. I won't get distracted. I will do this. I will do that. As opposed to saying, hey, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. I choose not to go off track for the next 10 minutes. That's it. In 10 minutes, I can give into whatever I want. So now I'm in control. You know, the whole just say no technique turns out makes you ruminate and think about and have more discomfort around the thing you want, increasing these internal triggers, and that actually is what makes you give into that distraction. We know that with smoking, actually, it's very interesting. We're finding that nicotine is less and less part of the reason people get addicted to cigarettes. It's more about the rumination around, I want to smoke, but I can't. I want to smoke, but I shouldn't. I want to smoke. I want to smoke. I want to smoke. Fine. I'll finally smoke. Now I get relief. How do we know this? If you ask smokers, why do they smoke? The number one reason, it's relaxing. That makes no sense. Nicotine is a stimulant. Makes no sense. Right? Why would it be relaxing? It's relaxing because finally I can stop telling you I don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to fight with myself anymore. That eases that psychological reactance. I can finally give in. So when you use this 10-minute rule and say, okay, I can give into that distraction in 10 minutes from now, what you're doing is you're establishing agency. Right now, you're in control. And we can do anything for 10 minutes. And if 10 minutes feels like too long, try the 5-minute rule. The idea is that you're building that ability over time. So the 10-minute rule becomes the 12-minute rule, becomes the 15-minute rule. And you're learning, wait a minute, I can't actually delay gratification. Remember, all these problems of distraction are an impulse control issue. So when you teach yourself, wait a minute, okay, I can delay for 5-10 minutes. That's no big deal. You're proving to yourself, hey, I'm not addicted to these things. I'm not powerless. My brain isn't being hijacked. I do have control as long as I use these practices, right?
So what you telling me? If I get it, if I get an electric lighter, it's gonna make me want to smoke less? Maybe that's why electric lighters never really caught on, because it's not the same like hearing the spark of a lighter. I see what you're saying.
Literally put time in your calendar called worry time. And that's where you're going to look back at that Post-it note and worry about all the things that you thought that you thought you would normally have to get to throughout your day. Does that make sense? So I used to do this all the time. I would say, "Oh, I've got this worry. I need to take care of that worry right now," and that would derail me. As opposed to when I started writing down and planning for that worry time, you know what happened? 9 out of 10 of those worries and emotions and fears and thoughts melted away. When I had a few minutes to think about them, you know what? Actually, that wasn't that important. That didn't have to get done. That wasn't really a problem, right? And the 1 out of 10 that really was an issue that I did need to think about, okay, now I have time to actually think about it. So 1, it compartmentalizes that time so it doesn't pull you away, and it lets your brain relax. Second thing it does is that it lets your brain say, okay, I don't have to worry about this problem right now. I can think about it later. We see this, by the way, with children. You know, many parents, there's a whole section in the book, Indistractable, on how to raise indistractable kids. And so many parents ask me about, you know, what do I do with social media and this and that? And part of my advice is schedule time for your kids to play video games. Put it in their daily schedule. Like sit down with them and make a schedule for the day and have that time. Because then they don't have to worry about all day, when do I get to play Fortnite? When do I get to, you know, hang out with my friends online? It's in their schedule. It's coming. They don't have to think about it all day long. And so it's the same with any of these potential distractions. We want to compartmentalize these times when we can think about them later in the day and work on them.
So what happens then? So I've compartmentalized it. I'm writing my book. I'm on chapter 12. I've got a bunch of worries pop in. I'm scheduling that for later, and I'm going to crack on with the book.
Right.
That's what I say to myself. That's section 2 of your 4-step process, right?
Right. Making time for traction. So you're going to finish that time box.
Yep.
Right. So if you said I'm going to work on this book for 30 minutes, finish the time box. Even if you're just sitting there staring into space. Right. Stephen Pressfield talks about this in the War of Art. It's about putting your butt in the chair. That's what makes a professional. Is you do the work, right? And what you find is it's very boring for a few seconds. This happens.
No, I don't play video games or nothing. Why you spell my name correctly, bro? What's wrong with you, gang? You bugging.
Hands on the keyboard, just hanging out for a few seconds. It always comes back, right? Maybe a minute or 2 or 20 later, it'll come back. And if it doesn't, that's fine. Just finish that time box. That's the most important thing.
Step 3?
So step 3 is hacking back the external triggers. So this is where we do talk about the usual suspects, the pings, the dings, the rings. That's where we, very systematically go through what a lot of people complain about, but it's really only 10% of the problem, because 90% of our distractions begin from within. But people, do have these issues. We talk about the phone, the computer. What turns out to be a much bigger problem is not the technology, it's what the technology is attached to, right? So what if it's your boss? That's the distraction.
Damn, that's crazy. I ain't never seen that. It's the first time I've ever seen that my whole time I've ever been streaming. Crazy.
A distraction, especially now that Zoom makes it accessible so that wherever you are, people can call meetings. Those are huge distractions.
That shit just low-key pissed me off, low-key, bro. Because I go on my way to not spell my name correctly.
What would you do about that? And what's your general view? Let's take this into the professional context now. You know the design of most offices, the kind of open plan format where everybody can just walk over to someone else and say, "Oh, Jenny, if you got a minute, could you just take a look at this?"
Yeah.
The same applies in, the healthcare field and other sort of scientific fields where you're working around a lot of people who can just tap you on the shoulder and say, "Could you just take a look at this?"
Yeah. Can you pass me the book?
Yeah.
So every copy of the book comes with... Oh, did you tear it out already?
Maybe.
Oh, you've had this for a while, so you tore it out already. So usually right here in the back, there's a piece of cardstock that you put, it's this red piece of cardstock that you fold to the thirds and you put on your computer monitor. And it tells your colleagues, I am indistractable, please come back later. And that screen sign is a wonderful way. You put on
Yeah, I stream it on. I'm trying to start streaming on Twitch,
just need to
but
be indistractable for a little bit.
I don't know,
Right?
man. Every
People
time
say,
I
well,
stream
why don't
on
I
Twitch,
just put on
nobody ever
headphones?
joins.
Well, people think you're listening to an episode
you
on
gotta
YouTube
have
or
a
something.
fan
They don't
base
realize
already and drag them to Twitch. You just can't just
one
go
easy way
there
to do
and
it.
expect
Another thing you can do
mad views
is to start managing your manager.
That's not how it
And
works.
this is something that all of us can
Like,
start
I
doing.
tried
If you
with
have,
Twitch over and
bosses
over.
who, I hear this all the time, says, look, I'm indistractable.
Bro,
I
I
follow
ain't gonna lie. I be getting more numbers than
What do I do?
people.
So one of the things you
I
can do,
be
one of the
seeing
benefits of
with
step
a
2
lot more
there, where you
subscribers.
can
That's how I know,
make time
like,
for traction, is when
my supporters really fuck with me for real.
you have an artifact. You have something that you can physically print out and show to other people. So what I want folks to do, when they say, look, my boss isn't leaving me alone when I need to work without distraction, what do I do? What you want to do is you want to...
I don't know. Is it Wilma? The fuck? I'm not gonna try to pronounce it. The fit. Yeah, I can't.
Here's my time for this meeting. Here's my time for email. Here's my focused work time. Here's what I'm doing this week. Here's the various projects you asked me to work on. Now you see this other piece of paper here? This is where I wrote down all the things that you asked me to do that I'm having trouble fitting into my schedule. And what you're doing with this process is you're avoiding one of the worst pieces of productivity advice that we hear all the time, which is, if you want to be more productive, you have to learn how to say no. That is the kind of advice that only a tenured professor would tell you. That is terrible advice. You're going to tell the person who pays your bills, no, you're going to get fired. That's awful advice. Instead of saying no, what you want to do is to engage your boss in helping you do the one thing that they absolutely have to do as a manager, which is prioritize. So you ask them, how can I make sure that I do what you asked me to do based on my schedule for the week? And here's what they're going to do. They're going to look at that and say, you know what, that meeting, that's actually not that important. But this project over here that you put on the piece of paper, that's actually super important. Can you swap those out? And so by doing that, you're doing what's called schedule syncing. You're making sure that their priorities are also reflected in your schedule. And bosses will worship the ground you walk on. They love this because every boss out there, every manager, we're wondering kind of what our people are doing, right? That's what they want to know, but they don't want to ask you that because they don't want you to feel like you're being micromanaged. So you're proactively doing that for them, and you're showing them, hey, this is the time when I need to do focused work. This is when I'm going to be indistractable.
On that point of priorities, you said that startup founders really only have one job, which is to prioritize. And that really did smack me in the face because that's so unbelievably true. We have a finite amount of resources, founders. We have a lot of things we want to do. We have more things we want to do than time in a day. And
No, but it's funny you said that, bro. I actually low-key want to start working up there. That's one of the jobs that's been on my list. I can't believe it. I don't know who. I'm starting to think all y'all in here are bots, and y'all know my personal information. Cause there ain't no way, bro. Y'all crazy.
creating systems, like you said, where we can sit down and reflect on our priorities is so important because we might have an idea every day. Then we get to 1 month later, and there's our to-do list or our teams are.
Cause I literally just started talking about that. I literally just. You be in my phone, gang. No, you suspicious. I gotta watch you.
Overcome by doing the first things we said, not the most important things we've said.
Exactly.
And a lot of the time, because of, I don't know, cognitive dissonance or pride or ego or whatever, you don't want to throw something out that people have started working on, or that you've told them to work on. Like going up to your team and saying, okay, we're just going to cancel that project we've just spent 2 weeks working on because this is a new priority. Sometimes can feel difficult.
Absolutely. It's called the commitment bias. When we commit to something, or sunk cost fallacy, it's also called that, that when we have a sunk cost in something, we value it more. But of course, that's silly, especially in business. I mean, this is, I had a professor in at business school who said, every business dies for the same reason. Businesses only die for one reason: cash. They run out of cash. Cash is oxygen. Oxygen is life. And the number one cause of a business running out of cash is doing the wrong thing
this point.
too long. So being able to cut your losses and saying, I know it feels wrong, but I know it's right in my head, that is an essential skill of every CEO, because again, prioritization is your only job. And good prioritization, people who are good at prioritization make for good CEOs, and people who are bad at prioritization make for bad CEOs.
So we're on step 3 of the 4 steps. What's step number 4?
So step 4 is preventing distraction with pacts. So
how much fucking accounts you got, gang? You just one of them. We try to block you and you just get like 100,000 accounts.
pacts are these what's called a pre-commitment device. So this is what you do after the first 3 steps. So you master the internal triggers, you make time for traction, you hack back the external triggers. As the last line of defense, as the firewall against distraction, you're going to prevent distraction with a pact. Now, what are pacts? It's when you decide in advance what you will do to keep yourself in that task. There's 3 types of pacts. We have what we call effort pacts, price pacts, and identity pacts. An effort pact is when there's some bit of friction in between you and the thing you don't want to do. So it's just us and your millions of viewers here. So I'll get a little personal, okay? A few years ago, my wife and I, and again, we've been married for 22 years now. A few years ago, before I was writing this book, we noticed that our sex life was suffering. That every night we were going to bed, and I was fondling my iPhone, and she was caressing her iPad.
You and me both.
Right? And we were going to bed later and later. And not only were we not getting proper sleep, we all know how important rest is, our sex life was suffering. So when I started this research, I came across this this research around the importance of these effort packs. And I went to the hardware store and I bought us this $10 outlet timer. Now, this outlet timer you plug into the wall, and whatever you plug into that outlet timer will turn on or off at any time of day and night.
Honestly,
So what did we do with that? We plugged in our internet router into this timer. So every night...
It's my genetics. You see that patch in my beard, bro? That patch in my beard made me think my dad is not my dad, bro. Because I'm the only one who got that white patch in my beard, bro. I'm embarrassed to even show this. I usually never do this for. But it looked like a shaver went straight through my shit. Like, it just clear. It just... Hair never grow there, bro. It's weird. It's fucking weird. I'm not gonna lie. In our household, at 10 p.m., the internet shuts off. Now, could I turn it back on? Of course I could. But I'd have to go under my desk, unplug this timer, reset it, and plug it back in. That would take effort. So I put some friction in between myself and the distraction. Okay? And lo and behold, every night we all knew, okay, the internet's going to shut down at 10 p.m., finish up whatever you need to do. And it gave me that bit of mindfulness to say, okay, do I really need to still, check email or social media or whatever silly thing I was doing? Bro, I can't, bro, because, like, without my beard, like, niggas gonna take me less serious, bro. With my beard, it's just, like, I become an authoritative figure. Like, I could, say some shit. And motherfucker won't get disrespectful, a beard come with, like, respect. Or is it time to do what I said I was going to do, which is get some rest, go to bed, and maybe be intimate with my wife?
People might hear that and go, you didn't need a timer to have sex with your wife.
But I did. I did. Because look, in the moment...
Not 16. You know what? You're right. I understand. Because, like, there'd be a lot of little kids in my life, bro. It'd be like, it'd be hard because I don't want to be mean and be like, Nigga said 16. That's how you feeling?
You're tired. You're just kind of drifting off. We've all done this, right? Where you're looking at something on the internet, and it's kind of harmless. You mean Bengay? You mean Bengay, nigga? Not Benjin? It's Bengay you try to say, bro. I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Bengay is for, like, I forgot what it was used for.
It was like for your knee. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Because, she's brushing her teeth and I'm waiting, and, just one thing leads to another. And before you know it, you've gone to bed later than you anticipated, and you've given up a lot in the process. So having that rule, again, having that time box calendar, that's step number 2, where we have in our calendars bedtime, right? Why do we do that? I know, okay, eventually I'm going to go to sleep, but why do I have a bedtime in my calendar? And isn't it ironic for those of us who have children? We tell our children, you need a bedtime, right? We're adamant about how our children need bedtimes. But for us, we don't need a bedtime. And my daughter called us out on this. She said, Daddy, what's your bedtime?
I'm pissed. Nigga said I look 16. Like, what could I do to look older? There's nothing I could do to look more grown. Like, I don't want to look older. I want to look more grown. I got to go in the gym. That's what I got to do. I got to hit the gym. That's what I got to do.
And she was absolutely right. We've all read these books. We all know how important sleep is. And yet, we don't go to bed. It's crazy to me how many, I see this with multiple domains in health and fitness. We get nootropics, and we get blackout curtains, and we get, melatonin. Just go to bed on time. That's the number one reason people don't get enough sleep. They don't go to bed on time. So did I need an internet timer? Yeah, we all do. Because this is what keeps us awake, right? We do all these interesting things. Again, the price of progress is that you can find anything you want at any time of day or night on the internet. So we do need these
30? Appreciate it. I ain't never heard somebody got that old in my age in my life. I don't appreciate you calling me older, but I appreciate you calling me grown. Like, I appreciate that shit. I ain't never heard that shit, Thanks.
So again, as the last line of defense.
Even if you lying, still thanks, bro.
It's not the first thing. I don't want people to listen to me and say, okay, fine, I'll get an internet timer, then I won't get distracted. No, if you don't first deal with the internal triggers that lead you to distraction, you'll find something else, right?
Someone's also going to say, listen, you've got 4G internet on your phone, you've got cellular internet, so you can just go
True.
on.
Again, but now it's effort.
Yeah.
Right? If I really wanted to lie to myself, of course I could. That's not the point.
Boy, I pay real bills, bro. And besides that, I was getting all them stimulus checks, nigga. Stop playing with me. I touch it way more than 400.
Right?
Yeah.
That there's always a way. The point is it adds a bit of friction.
Yeah.
Right? It's that bit of effort that now I have to take.
And more than anything, it's a statement you're making to
Right.
you and everyone in your social environment that at 10 p.m. is the shut-off time. Whether people adhere to that, as you say, there's ways to circumnavigate.
Thank you. 25. See? That's because of the beard. Niggas think the beard don't work. The beard got power. I can't picture me cutting my beard, bro. I can't.
That, but it's the statement of having that shut-off timer.
Exactly. And now, by the way,
Oh, sorry.
it actually wouldn't even matter. Because we all know the internet's going to shut off at 10. We all need to start getting ready to stop doing whatever we're doing because it's going to... Now, we don't even need it anymore. It's become part of our nightly ritual, right? And by the way, what I want to illustrate is the concept, not the practice, right? Tactics are what you do. Strategy is why you do it. That's more important. I think a lot of these books around similar topics around... dealing with focus and productivity. It's a lot of life hacks, right? But what I wanted was more the strategy, the psychological principles around why we get distracted. And then I'll let people come up with their own tactics. I give you lots of tactics as well, but this is just one illustration of how we can use this strategy. And that's only one pack. There's also 2 other packs I can share as well.
There's a lot of, just before we get on to other packs, a lot of...
I'm actually 23, by the way.
Debate over the years about this idea of willpower. All of, just before we started recording, I said to you, I looked up all these time management techniques and I've looked at these
What up, my guy? What's good with you? Productive mornings or what?
diet fads, and there's so many of them because it appears that none of them really work without this underlying thing called discipline. So you can have all the, I can time box and I can the 1, 2, 3, 4 technique and the ABC5 technique, whatever. But if I don't have the underlying discipline, then I'm not going to do any of these things.
Yeah, he was pretty close. That was good. Good enough.
Discipline is such an interesting word. It kind of catches a lot of different things.
Hey,
the psychological forces
can't be
you
showing off my
described.
job.
And this other theory of willpower that's sort of trundled on through the ages, that we have a limited amount of willpower, and if we try and do too many things at once, then we'll do none of them and only take on one bad habit at once. Is there any truth to all of that stuff?
No.
No?
No, willpower is not a limited resource. At least from the latest research, science is never conclusive, but from what we know today, it seems so. A few years ago, there was this concept called ego depletion. Ego depletion is exactly what you mentioned. It's that we run out of willpower, like someone would run out of battery charge on their phone, right? That it's a depletable resource. And this concept was promoted and kind of widely circulated in the popular press. And there were some fantastical claims made that if you drank sugar-sweetened lemonade, that you would boost your willpower. And it turns out,
Hi, Miss Calisis. Calisis? 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 Calisis?
as often happens in the social sciences, when something sounds a little fishy, we replicate the study. We try and run the study again. And Carol Dweck, who you might know from, she's probably been on your show, from her book Mindset, she decided to replicate these studies. She decided to run them again, these ego depletion studies. And she found that the only people...
I don't want to go home because I still got faith. I feel like he gonna call me when I'm already home. And if he call me when I'm already home, I gotta take a shit. I'm not gonna, every time I take a shit, I'm just staying home. Like, TMI, but I'm be honest.
Who experienced ego depletion, the only people who actually did run out of willpower, like someone would run out of battery on their phone, the only people who experienced that were people who believed that willpower was a limited resource. That's it. So it turns out, this is incredibly important because it has implications for all sorts of things in our life, right? When we believe that we are somehow deficient, that our brain is broken, that the world is conspiring against us to hijack our brains, when we believe these self-limiting thoughts, we act in accordance. And so it's very much the case with this ego depletion myth, that ego is that our willpower is not limited
8:58. That's what time it is.
unless we believe it is.
And on this point of, because I think the word discipline is somewhat interchangeably used with like willpower. It's doing the thing you said you...
Why y'all acting like y'all know me? This probably y'all first time in my life. Why are y'all acting like y'all know me? You don't. You don't. You don't. Y'all some newbies. Up to I ain't see one of my moderators join my live. And if they join my live and they ain't say nothing, that's disrespectful. Come on now. Watch out.
Gonna do, like, and you intended to do. I was trying to figure out what discipline is and where it comes from. Why in certain aspects of my life, like going to the gym now. So
I know it's you, Wilma, but I'm saying, it's probably your first time in my life today. I'm talking about today. You been here, bro? How long you been here? Bro? Be honest. Man, you gotta get wake and bake, man. He said,
the last 3 years, I've gone to the gym about 6 days a week. Before then, I couldn't. DJing, I've started DJing and I've done that for about 12 months. I've been disciplined with that. This podcast, I've been able to do it. We release 2 episodes a week and we have done for a while now. Why am I disciplined in some areas of my life? Why can I continue to show up? And why in other areas of my life is it?
no, but I got an uncle he be in Africa a lot. One day I'm gonna go to Africa. Promise ya. One day I'm gonna go to Africa.
It's kind of failing battle to get back on the horse every other week because I've fallen off. I had a hypothesis where I was like, well, with DJing, I have like a goal that means, this is maybe my discipline equation. A goal that means a lot to me. It's worth the pursuit. If I...
Okay, I see you. I see your IRS, International Revenue Services. Respect.
attain it, it feels like it's worthwhile. Plus the psychological engagement and enjoyment of the pursuit of the goal. So I want to be a DJ, plus the psychological engagement and enjoyment. I love the process of DJing. It's like meditational therapy, listening to your favorite...
How you love me? This probably your first time in my life, bro. Y'all just be selling me stories and I ain't buying it. Y'all just got here. I don't remember none of y'all names, bro. And I can understand, international revenue services. But the rest of y'all, bro, I don't know y'all, bro. I don't know y'all. I don't know y'all, man.
Music for hours, doing nothing other than being in that flow state. Minus, this is where you kind of come in, I guess, is the psychological discomfort or disengagement
Don't talk
associated with
about
the
my
pursuit.
lips.
So, for example, if the DJing equipment was up in the spare room and I had to load it up every day and it took 35 minutes to do it, and then I had to load up the software every day and it was really difficult, I might find the process not worthwhile and my discipline might wane. When you look at that equation, the why, the enjoyment of the pursuit minus the sort of unenjoyment of the pursuit, does that make sense?
There's a lot there. I mean, the basics are there. I think what's missing is that so with this DJing pursuit, you enjoy it. And so it's not hard to do something you enjoy. This is my problem with flow. You've heard about Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi with the concept of flow, that, you can get into this state where time flies and it's effortless. And the examples, if you read the book, many of the examples are from sports. They're from things that, people really enjoy doing. And that's like Hollywood. It's nice work if you can get it. How do you get into flow when it's something you really don't want to do? So right now you enjoy DJing because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's.
I'm sorry, what the fuck? What the fuck is cultural exchange? Fuck y'all talking about in the chat?
Not doing professionally, or maybe you are?
Not really.
No. So my guess is right now as an amateur, it's fun. Stakes are low. You're just enjoying the process. Very much what I used to do when I first started blogging, right? I was just writing for myself, and then I got a few readers. It was kind of fun, just, it was pure joy. It was pure amateur behavior. And then what happened when I said, okay, now I want to publish a book, or if you decide to professionally DJ, it's going to start getting hard, right? Now there's all this other stuff you don't want to do around the core experience, right? Now you got to figure out, how do I build my brand, and how do I get people packed into my show, and all this stuff that you have to do that maybe isn't as fun, and that's where flow falls down.
So this is exactly what's happening and happened. So started DJing, and then we announced I'm going to do a show. We've got 3,000 people to come to this venue. And in the lead up to that, DJing became a lot less fun.
Right.
And even now, so they've
Now, like, guys like Raider Joe. I remember your name. What's up?
they're trying to book me to do a show in Ibiza in Marbella this year. And suddenly I'm getting all uncomfortable about DJing again. So when I look at the equation I presented, what seems to have happened in that equation is the perceived psychological cost has increased suddenly. Because now there's like nerves and now there's like worry and all these other forces at play. And that equation's now out of kilt and my discipline has dropped.
Right. Exactly. And so that's where becoming indistractable comes into play. You don't need to be indistractable for something you love doing anyway, right? There's no problem with that. Follow through is easy. It's, how do I do the stuff I know I need to do, but I really don't feel like doing it? If you ask, we talked about earlier, the only reason businesses fail is because they run out of cash. The only reason we fail at our goals, there's only one. The only reason we fail at our goals is because we don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like going to the gym right now. I don't feel like working on that book. I don't feel like whatever it is. It's a feeling. Fundamentally, it's a feeling. Of course, there's outside factors, of course. But in terms of the number one reason we don't pursue our goals, we quit, right? That's the most prominent reason. We don't follow through. And that tends to be because of a feeling. So when there are these tasks that suddenly get hard, right, or suddenly difficult.
Who you talking about, Kevin? Because y'all having a conversation in the chat. I don't even know if y'all talking to me or not no more, bro. I'm not in a Circle K parking lot. The work. I'm behind my job waiting to see if I can get to go to work, man. I don't know if they're gonna send me out, bro.
That's when we need different tactics. It's easy to do the stuff we enjoy. It's hard to do the stuff that we don't enjoy.
So what would you advise me to do then? In the case of DJing, I've got, potential.
I ain't gonna lie. I hang with some Australians one time, bro. They sound like they speak a different language, but them niggas could drink, and them niggas is like, they vibe, bro, is just like, I can't even explain it, bro. Like, it just so, like, They so cool. They like the type of people you feel like you can let your guard around them down. But I don't know. Australians too nice, bro. Like they become suspicious. You know, when you that friendly, you become very suspicious. I've hang with Australians, bro. They very suspicious. But anyways, let me continue. Siko, I don't know what you saying. I don't speak Chinese or what it is. That's
Two shows this summer in Europe.
So I would start with your values. And that's part of step 2 of making time for traction. When people ask, how do I make a time box calendar? Where do you start? You start with your values. So what are values? The definition of values in my book is attributes of the person you want to become.
yes, Siko. Why you text me in that language if you know how to speak English? But anyways, no, I don't think I ever seen that movie.
Attributes of the person you want to become. So then what you do is you put your values in terms of these 3 life domains. I look at them as concentric circles. At the center of these 3 life domains is you. If you can't take care of yourself, can't take care of others, you can't make the world a better place. So when it comes to that life domain, you look at the things that you want to do for yourself, the time you want to spend to become the person you want to become. And you look at your calendar, you look at this blank calendar for the next 7 days, and you ask yourself, how would the person I want to become spend their time? And you put that time in your schedule. So time for rest, time for reading, time for video games, doesn't matter. Put that time in your schedule. The next life domain is your relationships. Part of the reason we have this loneliness epidemic in the industrialized world is that we don't.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right about that. But no, when people too friendly, they're just trying to make you let your guard down, bro. That's very dangerous. Don't ever let nobody make you feel like that, bro. You gotta stay with your guard up, bro. Like I respect Australians and what's not. They cool people, but they too friendly, man. No, I can never date an Australian girl, bro. Like I wonder how an Australian girl is like, bro. Like I'll be getting so jealous over her and she just being friendly with everybody, bro. Like no, no, no. Not in my house. Not in my house. You not being friendly with everybody in my house. No.
Have the time scheduled for our relationships like we used to. As the industrialized
Yeah. What's up, William? Maple?
world became more secular, the church, the synagogue, the mosque, we don't go to these social interactions where we care for others and others care for us. We don't have that scheduled in our day anymore. And I'm not saying, and I'm pretty secular myself, I'm not saying we have to do that, but
You know what? When I end this live, I'm gonna look up the murder rate of Australia. Cause they too suspicious. I'm gonna have to try and see what y'all murder rate looking like. Let me see what y'all be getting to.
that is what we have lost because we don't have these regular, what used to be religious institutions. It doesn't have to be real. I mean, Robert Putnam was talking about this in the 1990s in his book, Bowling Alone. We don't have these regular social interactions like previous generations did. And we need to bring those back. I actually think social media overuse is a symptom, not the cause of the fact that we.
Bro, I'm really thinking about it. Australians are probably the only set of white people that I could take on that work so hard. I wonder if slavery exists in Australia back in the days. And if slavery did exist in Australia, was slaves treated nice? I don't know. That's the type of shit I be thinking on.
Don't see people regularly. So you need to put in your calendar time for those relationships, your friends, your family, your kids, your significant others. You have to put that time in your schedule. Don't give them whatever scraps of time are left over. Put it in your schedule. Then finally, your work domain. This is where most people start. It's actually, I think, where we need to end. Work comes in 2 flavors. We have what's called reactive work and we have reflective work. Reactive work is how distracted people spend their days. Reacting to messages, reacting to notifications, reacting to requests, all day long reacting to things. And that's fine. Everybody's job will involve some amount of reactive work. But if you're not scheduling time for reflective work, you're going to run real fast in the wrong direction. You have to put time in your schedule to think. If you want to do work that is creative, work that requires focus, you have to schedule that time. It's okay if it's only 15, 20 minutes, but that time has to be on your schedule. So to answer your question of, okay, well, what do I do with this passion I have around
What's up with you, Joss? How you doing? Productive mornings?
DJing? It's a factor of how much time you want to put into it.
Yes, I do want to go home. But I feel like if I go home, then I have to go home and work, because if I don't go out today, it's been like 3 days since I ain't got to work. So it's like it's eating me up. I don't want to go home, bro. I dead ass don't want to.
Based on your values, based on the kind of person you want to become. So what would the Steven you want?
If I do go home, bro, I'm locking in, and I'm gonna create some videos to post. Like, I definitely gotta start posting more.
Become how much time first and foremost, not outcome. I think that's the problem with a lot of goal planning. This is one of my beef with to-do lists. To-do lists are a series of outputs. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
Damn, I feel you on that, Pete. I feel you on that every day, bro. Literally. That's why I do this shit so fucking, like, I do this shit so much, because, like, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, because I know it's gonna pay off, bro. I know it's gonna pay off for this. I'm not about to keep working jobs and working 9 to 5, and no, bro. I'm gonna just keep working on my videos, bro.
And it has no constraint. A to-do list has no constraints. You can always add more. And so what happens? You come home with your to-do list of a million things after you've worked really hard all day long. And most of those things you have not crossed off. So what does that say to your self-image if every day you come home and all these things still haven't been done after a long day of work, and you haven't done what you said you would do? Loser. So day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, you're reinforcing this self-image of someone who doesn't do what they said they're going to do, right? As opposed to a time box calendar has constraints. Same 24.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, the more fucking, every time somebody vote yes, somebody else come in and vote no. So it just stays to the same fucking percentage, bro. I'm fucking hungry, bro. I'm hungry as fuck. Could you hear my belly growling? I don't know if y'all can hear this shit, bro. I'm literally fucking hungry as fuck, bro. Pissing me off, bro. I don't think we ever get to 95. I'm about to just go home. For real.
Hours in the day, right? And I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, you can always make more money. You can't make more time. And I think it's exactly flipped. Most people are cheap with their money and generous with their time. I think it should be the opposite, right? We should be cheap with our time and generous with our money, because you can always make more money. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time. So a time box calendar forces you to work with constraints and decide, based on your values, how much time you can afford to spend on whatever you want to do.
Bro, I've been having a tummy aches. Should I still eat McDonald's? I don't know.
Right? Because if you put in everything, you'll get nothing. You'll live in regret. Whereas if you say, look, I only have 4 hours a week for DJing endeavors, and here's where I'm going to put that in, because I also want to spend time with my friends. I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my business. So it's not based on outcome. It's based on input, right? So if you went to a baker, okay, and you said, hey, my kid has a birthday party. I need 2 dozen cupcakes. Baker's going to say, okay, I need flour, I need sugar, I need butter, I need all these inputs. I need these ingredients to make the output. But when it comes to knowledge work, we only think about the output. But what's our input? Our input is just 2 things: time and attention. Those are our ingredients. That's it. So you can't just think about the output. You can't just think about the cupcakes. You have to think about the input. The input is time and attention. And that, just like ingredients for a cupcake, has to be budgeted for. You have to plan that ahead, or it's not going to work out.
So you were my inspiration for starting time blocking, I've called it, but time boxing.
Yeah, same thing.
And it's really, really been helpful, specifically in times when I'm not in work. So when I go away to write, for example, and I don't have meetings that are like, I have to do, that pop in and out, etc. It's been super helpful. And also, I'll be honest, during the pandemic was when I really, to the point that I started developing a time blocking app with a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah?
Because it was that useful for me. The pandemic had happened. We weren't meeting.
No, I'm not high, bro. My mom is Chinese, bro. Oh, my God. Oh. I hate when people do that shit, bro. My mom's Chinese, bro. Okay, you caught me. The fuck?
Anybody, we weren't having sort of in-person meetings. So I had long days, but that felt a bit more empty than usual. So to sort of get a grasp on them and stop them being whittled away by distraction, I started time blocking, and it was amazing for me. I guess one of the questions I want to ask before I get onto this is, do you even... So in my personal relationship with my girlfriend, we've been together for about 4 years, pretty much ever since we first met, me and you first met. It's the first time I've lived with someone. She's moved in, we live together.
You know what? You're right. You know, they could have been called me already, but like you said, that's what happens when you get high, bro. I don't even want to walk back out and go back over there no more, bro. Like, at this point, I'm waiting for him to call me on my phone.
And one of the things that a busy lifestyle can do, and I think you've described it as well, is it can have an impact on your sex life and relationship, dates, date night, etc.
Bro, could you stop doing that shit, bro? Stop naming food, bro. That's not even funny no more, bro. Like, the fuck is you doing? Naming all these good shit, bro. I got the weirdest fan base ever, bro. I got the weirdest supporters, bro. Could y'all hear my stomach? Every time I put the camera there, she start acting shy.
So I proposed the idea to her because of you. We should schedule these things because I schedule everything else that's important to me.
Yeah.
So we should schedule our date night and those kinds of things.
Right.
Because that's equally important to me too. And she was a bit resistant to the idea at first because her rebuttal was that it kind of takes the spontaneity and the spice and the...
Date night or scheduling sex? Because some people schedule sex. I don't go that far.
I wouldn't go as far as scheduling sex, but it's really like spending time together and doing stuff. She was resistant to scheduling it because
I'm a temp service worker. That's what I do, man. I'm a proud temp service worker, bro. I wish I could have had a job, but it's better than none.
Felt that it took like...
But so there's an interesting concept. Okay, so when I was, my wife and I met at university, and we met in an economics class. And in this class, they discussed this concept of a residual beneficiary. A residual beneficiary in business is the person, the chump, who receives whatever's left over when a business is sold. So first debt holders get their share, then the equity holders. Whatever's left over, the residual beneficiary gets, right? And after we'd been married for a few years, she sat me down and she says, Nir, you have turned me into the residual beneficiary.
Wow, what a thing to say.
Right? I get whatever scraps of time are left over. If you and your relationship, by the way, my book is not for people who have a perfect life, okay? I don't have a perfect life. I still get distracted from time to time. The difference is between a distractible person and an indistractable person is that a distractible person keeps getting distracted by the same things. Paulo Coelho has a wonderful...
Go back where? Go back in there and wait? Is that what you trying to say?
Quote, he said, a mistake repeated more than once is a decision. Such a good quote. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. Good, right? So distractible people keep getting distracted by the same things again and again. How many times are we going to complain about TikTok and Facebook before we say, enough, I'm going to do something about it, right? Indistractable people say, okay, I got distracted once, but you're not going to let it happen again and again. So I'm going to take steps today to prevent getting distracted tomorrow. So when my wife and I found that our schedules were getting busier and busier, and we weren't making the proper time for each other, it wasn't happening spontaneously, then we had to go to plan B. And plan B, for a long time, there was no plan. It was just, well, it's not happening. The problem is, people interpret the fact, maybe you felt this, that not making time, not being spontaneous, means that we don't love each other as much.
What the fuck are you, like, what y'all got going on? What y'all really got going on? What the fuck is all of that about, bro? Oh, my belly hurt.
I think that's a huge mistake. That's not it at all. It
shit.
certainly wasn't
You still
in
in
my
here?
relationship with my wife. I still loved her just as much. Just that I was busy, honey, and there's this big thing happening here. I need to do this, I need to do that. And the time would slip away, and we wouldn't spend time together. That's no indication that I don't love my wife. It's an indication that I didn't know how to prioritize my wife properly. So I stopped making her the residual beneficiary. If we have extra spontaneous time, sometimes a meeting is canceled. Great, let's do something together. But at minimum, we know on Friday nights, that's our date night.
Quick one. As you guys know, we're lucky enough to have Blue Jeans by Verizon as a sponsor of this podcast. And for anyone that doesn't know, Blue Jeans is an online video conferencing tool that allows you to have slick, fast, high quality online meetings without all the glitches you might